Yeah, I'm sure.
We have a few minutes, but do you want me to start recording now? You guys want to start?
Just wait 1 second while we get our other member in.
Then he won't be late.
How you doing, Alan?
Hurry up.
He's early.
Alan gets that.
Hey, Laura, what's the Wi-Fi password? What's the Wi-Fi password, do you remember? Applejack or something?
Applejack.
Just that,
Maybe plural.
just the Applejack?
I think it's Applejack.
Yes.
Let's see.
I should write that in my book.
You always forget it.
Oh, Cheerios.
We're good.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Planning Board AHRB on February 2nd, 2023. We have an interesting agenda tonight, but before we go to our formal agenda, we have a presentation by Trustee Patino to talk to us about the project that's going on at the park.
Old Park? Yeah, yeah.
They made special accommodations for me. Good evening, Michael Patino, 168 Ashford Avenue, trustee member. I'm just going to give a brief introduction. I'd like to let Suzanne Nolan, who's here, who's the landscape architect, and Anthony Oliveri, who's our village engineer, who have both been instrumental in devising this schematic plan, along with some other folks at the village and the board. We have, as everyone is, I'm sure, familiar, there's our sidewalk and retaining wall at Gould Park along Ashford Avenue has been undermined as a result of some, heavy flooding, partly due to hurricane, partly due to just sort of this. Once it starts eroding, it just perpetuates, self-perpetuated. So we are going to be repairing the sidewalk, repairing the retaining wall, and we see this as an opportunity to introduce, or reintroduce rather, the staircase that connected the upper park to Ashford Avenue. As part of that, and as part of the idea that universal accessibility is an important part of any of the village projects we undertake, there's also a ramp. As part of a program to improve the park, we are proposing a new basketball court. The reason we're doing that is the current court faces east-west, which, as you can imagine, in the evening, there's a distinct disadvantage to one of the teams. It will include lighting on the new basketball court. We are also looking at pathways, a significant amount of landscape, and as some residents have suggested, a connection between Virginia and Washington with a crosswalk, which would be right here.
Mm-hmm.
There are, in addition, we've done some landscape seating. Those of you who've been in the village for a long time, maybe you remember, or maybe not, there was an interesting seating concept at the corner of Maple and Washington on the lower field, which had carved into the hill this kind of amphitheater seating. So we're going to reintroduce that idea here at the park. So I'm going to let Suzanne, Anthony take over from here. But the focus for tonight is really two parts. One, I would like the planning board to be a part of any village-related project going forward. I mean, it's just obvious why. You all know that. It should have happened many times in the past. It will happen in the future, so this is the first of those. I want these to be, we just want your input because you've got a lot of value to add to our projects. We want those voices in the, in these projects. And so give us your feedback. We'll take it back to the committee. We'll go through all these things. If we have questions, we'll come back to you. But we really like to embark on the design phase. Anthony, we keep giving him harsher and harsher deadlines, but we aren't giving him the go-ahead to start his working drawing. So the idea is we want to give him some guidance here. And as we develop it, we'll come back to you again, maybe a little less formally. We can work that out as we go forward. So I'll let Suzanne and Anthony.
Maybe I could just I'll walk through the plan real quick. Because Trustee Patino.
Do you need a microphone? I mean, do you have
Go
to?
ahead.
There you
Is that's better?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, as Trustee Patino put it, this is kind of a concept plan. We've been working with a subcommittee. The village board asked us to take a look at this. It kind of started with, the idea of reconstructing the wall that's collapsing and actually is collapsed in a couple of spots here. There was a repair done on the wall, as you may have noticed, near the pool area, if you can see my cursor. This was more easily repaired because there was less freeboard on the wall. There was only about 2 or 3 feet. There's an embankment on the other side, on the pool side. So this side has about 5 or 6 feet exposed. So when looking at that, the idea of, replacing a staircase that I guess was originally located down at the end here at some point, put that back into the park. So we added the staircase and the evolution of this, looking at this with the subcommittee was, well, what about ADA accessibility? So we went with the ramp. And the idea of repositioning the basketball court to go south, and kind of tucking it into the grading, the slope here on the east side, and creating this kind of tiered seating arrangement here. So right now, I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it a little better. Again, it's a concept. The stairs are about 12 feet wide at this point. And this ramp, you can see there are landings about every 30 or 35 feet, which is a requirement under the ADA code. So that creates kind of a switchback ramp system here, and all interconnected with the existing paths in the park. We made an effort to avoid this tree, the drip line on this tree. I think we're about 45 feet off that tree to try not to disturb the root system or disturb it as little as possible. The idea with the wall replacement was to not remove the existing stone wall, because this is like right on the sidewalk line for Ashford Avenue, and it'll require a lot shoring to hold up Ashford Avenue. Essentially, we've got water and gas lines out here. So what you can see, this line here is really the line of the new wall. It'll be built in front of the old wall. And that'll allow for some green space to be planted, and Suzanne could speak to that. But right now we're just showing some trees as a placeholder. The sidewalk would be redone along Ashford, and you can see kind of ghosted in here are some piping and catch basins that will be part of this project to handle water that comes down Beacon Hill. There's quite a bit of water that comes through here, so we are looking at kind of the whole corridor, a flood study for the whole corridor. However, this wall isn't waiting for us to finish that, so we're incorporating enough of a pass-through pipe culvert here to connect into the existing system, so that we don't have to go back later and dig up what we put in to deal with that issue when we do have a project for the flood mitigation. There are some cross sections here just to give you a sense of the scale of the steps. And again, this is on a conceptual level at this point. This is kind of a cross section through the ramps. It may not make too much sense to you, but it's just how the ramps step down, the 2 switchback levels of the ramp, and just starting a cross-section on the seating here. I think the seating was, those steps were about 20 inches high, and right now the trustee Patino mentioned the subcommittee that we've been working with started looking at materials, but there's really no consensus on materials yet. But I think it's, kind of gravitating towards more of a stone natural finish. But steps would probably be more of a concrete, poured in place concrete. There's talk of, different tread materials and so forth. But that waits to be seen. What we're really looking for at this point is to kind of get the program down so we can get into design drawings on this. But that's it kind of in a nutshell. I don't know, Suzanne, if you want to add anything on maybe where the landscaping would go in your view.
So I'm Suzanne Nolan. I consult to the Village Dobbs Ferry on landscape architectural issues. And getting involved with the subcommittee, there was an opportunity to start connecting disparate interventions that were being considered in the park, like there's some screening that I had worked with the Parks Department on looking at for the pool area, because I think there's been some talk about needing screening for users of the pool, and that was, an opportunity to start looking at this more comprehensively rather than just, placing different things in the park. And working with the subcommittee, the idea came about that, shifting the basketball court, so realigning the basketball court, but even shifting it into the slope would allow for this terraced approach to the seating, which would also allow for like a bit of a more open feeling in the center of the park, allowing for, the ability to more elegantly connect the different, the playground to the new entrance to the basketball court. So it's been, little interventions kind of coming together to make a more cohesive overall approach to the park. So there's yet to, be determined exactly how the trees will work on along the street, but and it'll be two different treatments, because on the part of the wall is done, and on the new area of work, there'll be a slightly different treatment, but the idea is to make it as cohesive as possible and to improve the streetscape as well as the park.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both very much for sharing this with us tonight and for the rest of the audience. And we look forward to using the park as soon as it's...
Yeah, I'd like to offer a comment, if I can. Is that part of what this is about? Yeah. Okay. First of all, I want to thank Michael for starting to introduce this new regimen of us being able to see these things. I think that's really important and long overdue. I have a question and a comment. My question is, what happens to is the stair, the existing stair that is by the deli and so on, that stays?
It's gone. There's no stairs.
So there will no longer be a connection from Ashford at that end?
So as part of, it was a health department requirement when we rebuilt the pool, that the pool and bathrooms be enclosed by one single contiguous fence. And that necessitated closing off that stair. It was also the case that stair was in terrible shape. There were, maybe half the treads were safe to walk on. So the stair was taken out, along with, as I'm sure everyone laments, there was a number of trees along Ashford Avenue. Those were also removed. So part of this is to reintroduce some very, valuable and beloved elements into the park, or back into the park. And so, we just don't have the opportunity to put it on that same corner, but this is sort of the very faint line. The fence line is just about 10 feet or so from where we're putting the new stair.
That's,
And then my comment, that's great, and then my comment is, the only thing that I think it deserves kind of more study, it's very hard. The ramp, the ADA accessible ramp to me looks very much imposed on the landscape. It's very hard to do these things in, I know, to sort of, but I feel like in the development of this, you should consider ways in which somehow the topography and the ramping look like they are like interacting with each other more. I don't know that the ramp needs to be parallel to that wall on Ashford Avenue. I'd like to see how the rest of the topography resolves itself as it makes that turn, and see if there isn't some way for the ramp to feel like it's like more part of whatever the topo is going to be than what it looks like now, which is, to me, imposed.
I think we have a couple studies that Anthony did. Maybe we can forward those on and you can take a look and see if, but you know, now that we have all the topo info in the drawing, maybe we can compare that again to,
You know, because they don't have to be equal length, you know, I understand. I don't know. I just think there are
I think
opportunities
we
to
would
make
try,
it.
we would try and, I think, get to let the ramp off at that same point of the stairs. And if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying if we work with the grade, I don't know if you can see my cursor, and we might, you know, are you suggesting maybe ending up on this end?
Not necessarily, although I think that would be great. I think it's more that it seems to me that, first of all, the legs of the traversing doesn't necessarily have to be two equal lengths, and that I could imagine that first length, the one that's parallel to the wall in Ashford, might not actually be so parallel, like it might actually begin to be more of a sort of, I don't know, V shape or.
Starting to work
that it
its
would-
way down this slope.
That it would sort of open itself up in some ways. It follows the topography around. Right now, and I'm sure this is doing injustice to, you know, I realize it's just a study, like the topo just crashes into the end of that ramp, right? I'm sure that's not what is happening. But I feel like it's worth some study to figure out how much you can make the ramp feel like it's working with whatever the new grades are. That would be the only design-related
Like
thought
it
that I
becomes
have.
softer.
It feels, right, that it would feel more organic with
Yeah.
whatever you're doing with the topo.
I can't show, you know, I just realized I did not show this elevation. It's kind of long and
Flat.
flat. But, you know, looking at, let's say, looking straight head-on, maybe I can make it a little larger, to the stairs, you know, from the park side, looking at the stairs and the ramp, it's pretty gradual. By the time the ramp gets down, we're pretty much at the flatter area. You know, so there's a pretty sharp slope in front of the wall. So there's not a lot of topo really to work with other than that first like 20 feet maybe.
Well, I don't know. I don't
We
know.
can-
I don't know the
play
site.
around
I don't
with
know the site well enough.
Right, we can play around with it.
Yeah, or send me the topo and
it is the thing that
it looks heavy.
satisfied with, and so I think it's a good place for us to start.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for sharing that with the planning board tonight and with our audience. And, you know, we look forward to enjoying our new park in the spring or summer or whenever. Thank you. All right. We will move to the agenda of the planning board. Our first item number 1 is North Mountain Drive, pre-submission conference for proposed plans to construct a new home on a vacant lot.
Good evening, as they figure out the
Tell
technical
a joke or
issues.
two.
Yes, I will entertain you.
The audience.
Good evening.
Chairman Hunter and members of the planning board, Kristen Wilson here representing the property owner here. This is known as the Golio residence. You might be surprised to see us back here so quickly. At our last meeting here, you sent a memo or had staff send a memo to the zoning board indicating that you did not see a reason why you cannot fit a single-family home on this lot. Zoning board, go do your job. And zoning board, we appeared in front of the zoning board on, I believe it was January 11th, and they said, thank you, but we want the planning board to act first. So procedurally, it is legal to do it this way. Ultimately, any approval you grant would be on the condition that the zoning board grants whatever, really the variance that we would need, or the interpretation that we need. But let's say it's the variance. They grant the approval and relief that we need. So we're back here before you tonight, having responded to the last iteration of comments that we received December, January timeframe. So we believe we have satisfactorily answered your questions from an engineering point of view. We had some comments from the planner, the building department, and Patty Steinsteiner will certainly go through the details. You have his comments back. And the next step for the planning board is to go ahead and set the public hearing and see if the public really needs us to drill down on any more details that we haven't already.
And isn't it fun that today is February 2nd, Groundhog Day? Because it certainly feels like we've been here before. So Kristen explained to you why we're back to you so quickly. So we hope that you embrace the theory that this is the right way to do it. I think it sounds good. And what we've done, because we are now actually looking for you guys to call for a public hearing and actually make a decision on the site plan, we've advanced this a little bit so that we've got things further developed than what they were before. I'm going to try and skip most of the stuff that we've spent time already looking at, but if you see something that you want more information about, some of these I just included because there were questions that Anthony had about drawings and what we were submitting. So I think we're in good shape with all of that now. I think we still come down to the same 6 primary concerns that were identified by the zoning board initially and then addressed by this board. Stormwater management, vehicular safety, whatever was the other one on the bottom, size of house, site stability, and landscaping. And what we've done is we've brought the engineers in to get more involved. They have submitted their drawings, whether it's erosion, sediment control plans, or stormwater plans, and those have all been submitted to Anthony's office so that he's been able to give a review. We've got a letter from him, and there's some things that he, thinks need to be dealt with, which I'm sure they do. And we can certainly do that between now and the next meeting. I also got Valerie's comments. I do have one differ on that, but I don't know if we should do it in the meeting. It's just the interpretation of some of the stuff in the code. But we can talk about that as we go. What Hudson Engineering has done is they have managed to design a stormwater storage system, retention, detention, that takes all of the water and dissipates it on site. So it has the capacity to handle a 100-year storm. There is one question that, one concern that Anthony had, which is that they're showing 8.5 feet to a property line when we've said it should be 10. And my understanding is we do have, a little bit of jiggling with that. We can get it to where we're 10 feet from the property lines and 10 feet from the foundation. So I don't think that will be an issue. One of the other concerns that was expressed, well, here's information on the storm drainage, confirming that it's, they're doing a 100-year storm event from the watershed, and and they're keeping it on site. And one other thing I wanted to point out, it was a comment that some of the members of this board had, we could do some things with permeable pavers. So what we've done is we've shown permeable pavers for all of the walkways and the terrace around the pool. And we have not used the capacity of that storage system as a way of reducing the Coltex. The Coltex stay is a 100-year storm, but in addition to that, all the water that's going to fall on the terrace will be able to capture at least a 10-year storm. We're basically coming up with around 5.2 inches of rain that could fall on that before it's, we're getting that about every 3 weeks, right? So, you know, we'll be able to take 5.2 inches of rain falling on the terrace without it having to go to immediately to the Coltec units. We will need under drains in the event that it doesn't percolate in, but that all seems like it's pretty straightforward to do. This is just information that was in this. You've gotten this before. The perception is that this is a mountain of rock. The reality is we've dug test pits that are 8 feet deep in dirt without hitting any rock, so it promises to be good. And they did that in the area where they're showing the Coltec units, where the actual grade is substantially less than 15%. They found the one place on the site where you could kind of fit this in. There are a couple of little smidges of green hitting it here and there, but we're not trying to put something on a steep slope site. This is a letter that you should have received in your packets from Integral Engineering Services. They've done a review of both of the two memos that we submitted, one of which deals with the rock removal, the other that deals with the parking and traffic, confirming that what we showed is right and makes sense. One of the questions or concerns or requests that Anthony made was that we provide a profile of the driveway, which we actually had already provided. That was in there, so I think we're good with that stuff. We also made sure that we've got good visibility up and down the street from the location of the driveway. So I don't think the board needs to have concerns further with that. This stuff I'm going to skip because this is actually what I'm going to talk about with Valerie, and for all intents and purposes, it was not something that we submitted to you guys for a review. It just has to do with certain interpretations in the code. And here's one that I've shown before, but I want to reiterate. The red is where the site exceeds 35%. So what we've managed to do is position the house so that it fits in to that hillside, not in the areas where it's super, steeper than 35. Again, our goal is to do what we've done before in Dobbs Ferry. When we find lots and lots of rock, we don't, take it out so we can build a retaining wall. We use it as the site, and of course that means we'd have to submit drawings that show what all that is to the building department so they can be happy with all the ways that it's been done. This is the landscaping plan. There was a comment that this was underdeveloped or something, but I'm not really sure. I mean, to me, I'm actually a little concerned whether we're going to have to go to more than one nursery to get all the plants for this one property. So I think it's a fairly extensive landscaping plan with material done by Susan Janchill, who's very experienced with this area. We've worked with her a lot. She does good work. These are the drawings that we submitted to you that have taken things a little bit further. I don't think we need to bog down in this because you've already seen all that. Just the reality is we've taken the drawings up to quarter-inch scale. We've got elevations now that are relatively complete with detailing, material selected, colors, all of those kinds of things. Still noted not for construction. Basically what you're looking at is a brick and stucco building with some additional pieces that are done in a panel that would be basically stained a very dark black, like a blacktop kind of color. We also have some wood elements to soften it, but it's a look that the client is, specifically is requested. And we've taken some of the images up so that you can kind of see them better. This just goes into like what all the materials are. We'll obviously have that for the public hearing. And then we've got a number of images showing how the house sits into the hillside. And if I'm quick enough getting around here, I won't waste any more time with this. Let's see if I can actually make this work, which is, let's see. And let's see. Yeah. Oh, no, it's not showing it. I'm my screen, I'm seeing this wonderful video that's showing you the house as it flies by, but it's
Keep putting
not.
it up, we can see it.
Yeah, you know how to make it work, Steve. I'm still sharing, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very cool.
Are you in
Different
slideshow
window.
mode, or are you not, maybe this looks like it's not the presentation mode.
Let me see. No, on my screen, I don't have that.
But here, you see that's usually not
Well,
the slideshow from the beginning.
well, we can probably live without it, so.
You can send it to us.
Okay,
guess
hey. Yeah, I mean, what I'll do is just walk quick past it.
It's okay.
Showing you how really cool it actually is. I mean, it's really,
So I,
it's neat.
Okay.
Catch
So-
up.
like it's on the beach.
Well, that's what's really cool about it. The program, this, for us, we all looked at, we imagined Palisades
Like
and the
San
Hudson.
Diego.
So this is like in 50 years, when
This
the
is-
Hudson is now
Right,
up
right,
to
yeah.
the waterfront.
Looks like San Diego.
Got it.
I mean, if something didn't go wrong with this presentation and the, equipment, I would be disappointed.
Patty, I go up and down North Mountain once in a while, because it's curling season.
Yep,
And I have yet to really identify where your cut is for the driveway.
we could flag it.
Huh?
I could put flags there.
Yeah, you could. You could.
Would, Boleyn, yeah,
That would be helpful.
cool.
That would be helpful, because, it's pretty much a big stone wall around those corners, so.
Yeah, where the driveway is, it's right on the edge of the property. What we'll do is
The
we'll put
downside or the upside?
the upside.
Upside.
So it's, we're using the topography to reduce
Yeah,
the pitch of the
okay,
driveway.
well, yeah, put some flags where you're gonna put your driveway, because it's not at all clear to me where that would be.
And if you call for a public hearing tonight, I'll put another sign up.
Anthony is all the handling the water on the site. Do you have any questions on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, we had a few questions remaining, but I think the engineering is getting to a point where, it looks pretty good in terms of the sizing of the system. It looks feasible that it could work and in that slope and in that depth in that area. I think just the overall sizing and under the zoning, with the calculations that Patty referred to, I think that, is gonna be key also to the sizing and mass. So that really needs to be worked out, I think. Everything hinges on that, but we're just down to 6 comments. I don't see the engineering as being insurmountable, really.
Thank you.
Well, I have concerns about Valerie's memo of 128.
Yeah.
There appear to be 3 extremely large variances required.
Yeah.
Extremely large.
This is what I was hoping to not try and discuss here in the board without you having gotten the information in advance. We're relying upon what's actually written in the code. If you look under definitions, this is the part I kind of skipped over. The definitions define the areas as based on the gross lot area.
No, it doesn't.
Look,
And
look in impervious surface.
Dan and I went through this. Yeah.
You could see on the bottom of every appendix, everything, it says net lot area.
Look at the definition in the code.
We
If you
did
look at the definition of code, it refers to lot area, but then if you actually look at the definition of lot area, there's 2 different definitions of lot area, net lot area and gross lot area.
Yes, and there's a definition for impervious area, and it refers to as a multiplication of the gross lot area.
So
That's what's in the
that,
code
You're
on lot.
using semi-pervious
if you're using
material.
semi-pervious, right. So talk to Dan, we can discuss
Right.
this offline, but the building coverage, so the maximum lot coverage by impervious surface has that contingency about the pervious surface, and so that could potentially be looked at for gross area if you're putting in pervious surfaces in there as alternate materials. But the maximum lot building coverage specifically would refer to net lot area.
It actually doesn't say net.
If you look at the table,
does.
Well,
both tables,
We'll come in and meet. If the 3 of us could meet, that would be really helpful. But that's, I mean, we have a house that fits on this lot nicely. It's consistent with the other houses in the neighborhood.
Well, I have an issue with the house mass. It just, to me, looking at these drawings that you've submitted, it appears that the house is extremely large for the space of the property. And I just feel that given kind of the break, you could say, of allowing you to build on a piece of property less than what the 20,000 maximum building lot should be, that the house seems to kind of not be in proportion to what you have there now and are allowed to build on. So it seems very massive.
Is that because you're concerned with the context of how it fits in the neighborhood, perhaps?
Well, it's up on a hill. It just seems like you're trying to take every bit of property that you have to get that house on there. It doesn't seem like it, is.
Yeah, I'm not going
in.
to, I don't disagree it's a large house. It's less than 18%, which is what the code permits, but the issue is whether that's of the net or of the lot area. The houses in the area are also large houses,
But is
including
their property is also,
smaller. Across the street, the lots are smaller and more steep. So what might be useful, Mr. Hunter's asked for it in the past on other projects. What we can do is prepare a list of the houses in the area, what their lot areas are, what their coverages are, and how they compare to this in terms of mass.
I think the other thing you could do is just on the little key plan, the vicinity map, is put the proposed footprint in next to, I think it probably would help your case. So, but I think you should put your footprint, the building footprint of your building relative to the lot into its larger context, so we can just see what the footprint looks like relative to
Other houses.
its neighbors.
Makes sense.
But I think it is, I want to just second what Alan said, because I'd say the same thing. I think, given how big the house is, and it's clearly you're trying to max out the site, I think the interpretation of this coverage issue and impervious surface issue is really important.
Yep.
I think it can't be, as it is, it's going to be a big house, and it needs to conform, unless there's some, if there was some really kind of special condition, or if it was very close, maybe we'd be talking about it differently, but those are like order of magnitude differences, the way you're calculating it and the way Valerie and Dan are calculating it, and I think that needs to get resolved. So the sooner you can meet on that and square that away.
Well, as I said before I went very far, I was going to think that I just got that yesterday. So I didn't think it would be fair to call Valerie and start talking to her between then and now. I figured have the meeting, and then we would all sit down and figure out how this works.
Good.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
See you next time.
No, just I'll reiterate, notwithstanding the vicinity map detail and maybe what I'll call a matrix of the footprint of this house in comparison to the neighborhood and surrounding homes. Hopeful that you will schedule a public hearing. Really, to our benefit, no one's fault, but we wasted a month going to the zoning board just to come back. And if public has concerns that we need to further drill down on those details, we'd like to know that sooner rather than later.
I understand your feeling, but why don't we have one more meeting where you can supply us with the information that we've talked about tonight, and then we can hopefully go forward at our next meeting.
Yeah, because I think, if it turns out that the resolution of these variances is not this coverage and thing, the house is going to change. I mean, it's going to be, it may not be a completely different site plan, but if Valerie and Dan are right, and you have to go back and make these adjustments, it's going to change some things. So these are not like details. Those are like 15%, I think, variance and a 20-something% variance. Those are real numbers.
Yeah, but all the lots are different sizes there. I mean, didn't we talk about this in an earlier meeting, that a lot of the other buildings have lots that are too small for their house, so.
I don't think it's necessarily out of context. I think if I didn't know anything about the coverage issues and so on, I don't know if I would have even picked this up. But since since there are these significant issues around these two parameters in the code, I think it's really important that those get resolved
Yeah.
between the three of you, and
Totally,
that that's
yeah.
what we look at.
So other than,
I mean, that's could be a significant change to the design of the house.
we'll, understood.
Yeah.
But just, I'll kind of ask one last, are there any other issues that, at least that the planning board and staff can think of at this time that you want more information on? We'll certainly have meetings and figure out lot coverage and percentages and that thing offline, those things offline. But any other issues that, at this time? They might come up at the public hearing at some future date, but.
I mean, the main concern that the zoning board had, they actually expressed this, was that this had not gone to public hearing. So none of the public had had the chance to speak. Now, I don't know whether there are a lot of people waiting for that. Perhaps there are, but it seems like it's better to get that sooner than later, particularly if the feeling is that this needs to be, that this is somehow the way it is because of concerns for how the community is going to see it.
No, I also support Rob's position that it's too early.
I mean, I'm sorry, and I do appreciate the issue between ourselves and the zoning board, but it could be I don't know, it's like a big enough difference. It's not going to be necessarily a nip and tuck kind of thing, and a little push here and a little push there if this interpretation that Dan and Valerie are suggesting are real. So I think until that gets resolved and we see what that looks like, I think it feels premature to me. I don't know.
I don't know. What's the board's feeling?
No, I'm not ready
Okay. I'm ready, but
What's that?
for a public hearing. I'm not ready.
I'd like to wait, please.
Wait. So we're gonna wait.
I'm ready, but it doesn't seem like, what are you saying at the end of the aisle there?
I don't feel comfortable.
Wait.
Rob?
I think we should wait until this issue of these variances things is resolved.
Sorry.
Well,
All right, well, see you again in the near future.
Okay.
Thank you.
see you next month. Thank you. Next item on our agenda, 111 Bel Air Drive. Public hearing for proposed addition and renovation of two single-family house. I don't know what that means, of single-family house.
See if I can do this. Sorry, you might have to help me again. I always seem to either put it in the wrong slot or I don't just click on it, man.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, alternate member Winder is recusing himself from this application. He left the room, but he'll be back. But he'll
He asked me if you should make an announcement. I said, no, just get out.
yeah.
Maybe you should have made an
So
announcement.
he'll sit in the audience.
He's literally the neighbor. He's one of the neighbors, and that's why he's appropriately recusing himself.
Permission
Dan,
to
it's
share
not
screen
giving
on
us
this?
share screen.
It's not getting us to share screen. Because you said you were on.
Yeah, but he did it from his own computer. I don't know why I'm not
It
seeing
says
it.
share screen. Share screen on Zoom. Stop sharing. Click Someone has to give us permission to share screen.
Can you join the Zoom meeting and share your screen? You got
That's what it usually is.
teenager.
Are we not on Zoom?
Well, you
Makes
are.
sense we are. Share screen. Who knows how to use this thing? There's an option.
For this, no.
It's like,
Yeah, I know.
is someone else in charge? So that-
No, here's,
And that's what we're gonna shoot.
it's right here. I think we did. And share.
You're not
All of the Zoom
now?
Well, no, I'm not.
Everybody comes. No, you're just, you're driving, yeah. Join the Zoom meeting.
I mean, I don't know if we're gonna do this, but. You can ask Dan if you still want to. Dan?
Oh, they want
your-
to live in Bel
Your
Air.
previous instructions? Oh, not, don't do it?
Is that you?
Okay, forget about this. Forget about this.
This is not,
Yeah, this does not apply.
it doesn't?
Yeah, doesn't apply, right? Never mind.
So what are we doing?
We're gonna make it up as we go along.
And share the screen.
They can never get the.
You know what?
thing
I'm
to
gonna
work.
take out, let's take out the USB and put in the front one, because I know we're gonna give it to me for some reason, sometimes, you know. You know.
This is good. This is EG. And so. There was enough. 10 feet.
There is, should I minus them?
Take a look at it.
Yeah, just be.
Them all out. Here?
Okay.
Zero.
That's exact, so that was my
Earlier meeting,
What?
you can look at one of the
Valerie here?
walls of the property. Looking at quite small.
Yeah,
It's not an outlier in terms of building coverage, but
Yeah, I think
like, I don't see it as a,
So it's kind of cute.
Like if we were,
All right,
Is that going to get a,
just bring it up on the.
10% smaller, yeah. And then
oh, that's because you're, you know what it is?
much closer. Yeah,
I would have said,
No,
it's
you
to me, what's called.
You want to.
And net versus gross.
In this case,
The net is after the steep slopes are taken away, right, or?
You know what?
maybe we could go on to something else.
It's gonna be a long night.
Niall Kane, I'm representing clients Gabriel
Do you want,
DeBerry.
some time to try to fix that, and we can go
Well-
on and come back to you?
Oh, yeah, if someone else can.
No, like the next applicant.
Yeah.
It's not, it's you, it's not me. I mean, not you.
Not you,
That's what they all say.
but can we,
Share screen
Yeah,
option.
doesn't make sense.
Usually just plug it in and it goes.
We could join and somebody could share it from here also,
yeah,
on one of the computers, the project page.
It's not 'cause you were
I don't know how to do
Oh,
that.
wait.
You were presenting.
I went off.
Well, that's good. I don't think that was on the agenda.
I had a separate
house sort of looks like a battleship.
That was great.
Aircraft
That's a
carrier.
That was a carrier. That's a great shot. What?
Ann's
And
dad
Lord.
Sorry.
Ann worked construction when she was a kid, you know, where they build us things.
No, just raised hand. Is it
It's really big.
Probably have a long agenda tonight too, right?
I was looking for materials. There's two of us. There are two of us. Oh, so we have the,
To us, it's there.
no, it's here too. It's up after this.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's right, we had this for the planning board. And it's Dubilla Drive is Osceola.
I dance. It's fun to dance.
I'm going to do 2 Osceola.
Free to share it here,
Okay.
so,
Still showing. I see is me. So because it's a public hearing, you want me to run through the whole, I mean, if we get it going,
Yeah.
the whole presentation again?
There you go.
Yeah.
Has anything changed?
Well, the public,
Hey, there you go.
Not of substance.
there it is.
It's in a little weird format. Can you fix the format? You change the... It's- I guess it's okay, right? I don't know, something...
Yeah. We need to open
The formatting is strange, but
Yeah.
is that okay?
Yeah.
Can't really see, the images are all coming up. Well, I know, but the PDF has presentation mode as an option.
While you're doing that, then.
But anyway.
I'll move that we open the public hearing.
Sorry, okay.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, so again, I'm Niall Kane, I'm the architect for the owners of this property, Gabriel DeBeery and Alice Child. It's 111 Bel Air Drive in Dobbs Ferry. You're looking at the existing house here. I guess if you, we're doing a substantial addition and renovation to this property. If you scroll down a bit, you can see the elevation, the rendering of the elevation. We're planning to transform this, what you saw in the first photograph, to this rendering here. This portion with the curve that's kind of going away from you is the addition. It actually is an addition on top of a stone terrace, a little bit larger than that stone terrace, so we're not really, which actually you can see in the slide below here, just if you slide down, I mean, if you scroll down just a little bit more, the addition will be there. And then we're also proposing an addition underneath this deck, be a sort of basement level addition and an addition on top of the garage, which was shown in the previous slide. You can just scroll down a bit more and see the elevation, the rendering of what we're proposing for the back elevation. This curved portion of the addition was what you saw in the previous slide, was essentially where that curved terrace is on the existing house. The main body of the house going south is essentially the same as the existing massing, with the exception of this cantilever portion on the second floor. And then again, there's the addition on top of the garage, which you can see just a little peek of in this rendering. And then there's stone terracing as the property drops down to towards the west. And of course, this elevation is meant to sort of take advantage of the nice views of the river and the Tappan Zee Bridge, which is sort of off angle from this elevation. This is an elevation of the south elevation of the house, because we don't have that in the rendering. As you can see, oh, I have the cursor, sorry, I'm trying to point at the screen. Oh, I can't use the cursor. Anyway, so this shows an addition above the garage. That little window is the existing garage, and in fact, that small window is there now, just more or less the same size. We did receive, I failed to mention, we have a covered front porch as part of the addition, which we received a zoning variance for. It actually basically complies with zoning regulations because of the zoning permits a covered porch that extends 10 feet out into the front property line and is no more than 50% of the length of the house. This is slightly more, and I don't have the exact number, but about 12 inches longer. So as I said in the zoning board meeting, it complies with the spirit of the code, certainly. And then there's a little vestibule that we're adding that did require a zoning variance, and it's almost identical to the little vestibule that was, is on the adjacent house to the north. This elevation also shows the addition, and we're proposing the basement addition, which is going to be sort of what we're calling the pool room. There'll be a pool table in it. We have the extended deck in the back, which is in fact going to be further away from the property to the south than it is now. We're cutting off 3 feet of it, 4 feet of it. And then you can see we're also proposing significant planting along this property, along the side of the house. If you scroll down a little bit more, in part of this plan project, as you all know, is legalizing a retaining wall and some fill that was placed in the backyard. We were actually proposing to, the retaining wall was built on top of an existing retaining wall, and you can see in this elevation in the back the sort of 2 tiers. It's the lower tier is existing, the upper tier is the 4-foot retaining wall that was added now currently on top of the existing retaining wall. We are proposing to push that back, so we'll have a tiered retaining wall structure, and then we're proposing planting all along that elevation where we're pushing the retaining wall back, and then of course there's a fence as well, and that's basically the existing fence that we will continue, and you can see that in photographs further on. We have the steep slope analysis, which shows the levels, areas of steep slope on the property. When we were here at previous applications, it was pointed out that the fill in the back most probably covered a steep slope area. So the house is not maxed out to its fullest extent. We have 250 square feet of buildable area that we could build, but when you take into account the probable steep slope area underneath the fill that was done previously, what am I trying to say? It's a little complicated. We are devoting the area, the 15 to 25% slope area that is probably under there to the square footage of the house. I really explained that in a clumsy fashion, but which is probably in excess, almost certainly in excess of the actual steep slope area under that property. And if you scroll down, you can see the area that explain it a little better when in the next slide. So this shaded area at the top is the extra area that we can allocate toward what was, the steep slopes area underneath that fill. And the average grade from the base of the house now to the existing stone retaining wall is 15%, 15%. So we are most certainly lower than the 15 to 25% grade that this shaded area designates. In addition to the additions that we're proposing, we're also proposing to put pervious pavers on the existing driveway and also creating a little parking area to the south to comply with the sort of requirements for 2-car off-street parking. And it's also nicer for the owners to have the cars side by side rather than stacked back to back. You could go to the next slide. As part of when we were here last, we were requested to do a perk test. We had sort of an estimate of what the likely perk test is based on other projects that I've done, so we accomplished that. We did the perk test. It's actually slightly lower than what we anticipated, which would allow us to take out 1 infiltrator and add a little more gravel, but basically it's the same proposal. And I would also point out that the stormwater, the infiltrators that I have will accept all the stormwater from all the impervious area on the site, including the existing house. And typically, often you just provide the stormwater management for the new impervious area, but we're providing it for the entire area, under the assumption that the existing dry well system is not adequate or not functioning properly. Although I would say that there's no sign on the property of any significant stormwater drainage problems, anything like that. But in any case, the new project will manage all the stormwater as required. This diagram here shows the section that I was referring to, this area here. This is existing slope average grade. This is slope coming up the previous slope prior to the addition of the retaining wall and build back 14%. And we're pushing this wall back, this wall. So, and this is the slope we are allocating that extra steep slope area to, which is again in excess of any, like the actual steep slope that existed prior to the building added. You can go to the next slide. That's the set. Should be bigger. That was meant to be an enlargement of the diagram in the back, the section in the back. It's just not coming up properly here. These are all the details. This shows the back retaining wall system, which is geotextile system. Same system that we placed on top of the retaining wall. We're just going to push that back and again screen it with planting. And we have a letter, sort of support from the neighbor to the west saying she anticipates it looks like a lovely project, et cetera, and she's fine with this proposal. And we actually have several other letters of support from various neighbors throughout the neighborhood. This shows the top on the left. Again, if I had my cursor, is sky exposure plane. You can see from the back and front yards. The house is actually quite low. It's 21 feet 10 inches from the average curb grade, as opposed to the allowable 35 feet. It is not a large house. It's commensurate with, it's large, but it's commensurate with some of the larger houses in the property, which you can see in this diagram, this sort of diagram of the adjacent houses. You can go to the next, scroll up a little bit. That's it's meant to be an enlargement of the diagram on that plan. Again, showing the existing and proposed footprint of 111 Bel Air and the adjacent houses. One thing I think it was asked last time, was asked to verify the view platforms, if there are any view platforms in this vicinity, and there aren't. The view platforms are further down as Bel Air sort of drops down towards Colonial and Palisade Avenue. There's really some dramatic views there, and this is not the case with this property. Scroll down a little bit more. This is sky exposure plane. This is sky exposure plane to the south of the property. It shows the sky exposure plane front edge, the sort of southeast corner of the property, obviously property line to the house. And this outline is both the existing garage and proposed addition on top. And then there's one taken at the center of the house, which complies. And then there's one at the very corner, which we're nudging just a little bit past. But if you look at the property, that zone at the southwest corner of the property is, all of a sudden drops quite low. So as it relates to the neighbor's first floor and actually the kitchen, which is the closest thing to this, the sky exposure plane does comply with relative to that floor height with the current code. And this, I'm disappointed we can't see these bigger. But this is a very kind of important photograph, I think, looking down. You can see that there is a little kitchen, which I think is the kitchen addition part of the kitchen of the neighbor's house.
I'm sorry?
It's fine. It's fine. Closer to side yard than it should be, but that vast majority of the house complies with. Current cone seems to be about 10 feet. I don't have their survey, but seems to be about 10 feet. And then, of course, the house here with the addition is going to be back from the 10 feet requirement for side yard setback, both the garage and the proposed addition on top. The next one just shows a sort of ghosted kind of image of the proposed massing of the house on top of the garage, just this massing of the proposed house ghosted over that. And you can see it's still in the same line as the garage.
Yeah.
Oops, what's happening? Oh, what'd you
You've got
do?
help in the back.
You did something. Oh, you're zooming in a little bit, okay. Yeah, that's good. Well, that's, okay. Oh, good, yeah, so, okay, some technical help from the owners of the house. Free of charge. Yeah, so again, this is what I was describing. Now you can see it a little bit better, just the relationship of the houses, which is not uncommon, sort of relative to typical side yard setbacks. And if you scroll further, you see the ghosted sort of image of the proposed house. And then we're proposing, this is rendering is a little clumsy in terms of the proposed planting there. It's more accurate, but we are designating on the drawing specifically that we will have some arborvitae that are much, that are 6 feet tall. So they'll be large. We won't have little puny plants. There'll be some really nice screening between the properties. And of course, the house is improved dramatically as well. So you can scroll down or up, whatever. Jeez, that got really big. This is just the neighbors invited Gabe and Alice into the house, and we took a picture through the kitchen window with their permission, of course, just showing their view to the existing garage, and it kind of shows that not going to be that different, with the addition. It's not going to be any closer, although there will be an addition above. But again, by the time you get above, their house sets back to the sort of normal setback, side yard setback that you'd expect, and there's this nice tree in between, which will remain, of course. And it's on their property anyway, I believe. And again, that deck won't be there. It'll be pushed back further. It'll be receded back 4 feet, so it'll be less significant than it is now. And some nice planning and an improved elevation. That seems like, I don't know. Go ahead. I'm sorry, you can scroll down. Looks like,
yeah.
Oh no, this is a little different. I'm sorry, that's the same photographs before. You can scroll, yeah. That's good. This is just a different view of the existing house with the sort of massing ghosted over. It's just a simple kind of diagram of the massing of the house as opposed to a full-on rendering. And I don't think this shows that much more than, the other rendering, the other photograph did. Yeah. Just plan of the house. It shows again, this is the addition to the right curved bit here. That large balcony there is really existing, with the exception we're pulling it back 4 feet from where it is now. There's a little balcony that is new here, a little curved balcony, and then some terracing and stone steps. Covered porch is, of course, proposed, as I said, and we got the variances required for that. And this next plan shows, again, you can see this just does show the little basement, extension of the basement at the west side of the elevation of the plan. Just the roof plan. Shows the plan of the upstairs, that's okay. And then this is the elevation. Again, the renderings really show this more specifically or more clearly than the elevations themselves. Again, actually, you can, sorry. You can see we've made an attempt. Again, the house is 21 feet 10 inches to the top from the curb line. We've really made an attempt to keep it low. This is a large house, but it's by no means massive. It's not enough of a character with other houses in the neighborhood. One of the reasons that the building area calculation comes up, calculation comes up as high as it does, is that the code requires that any elevated deck be included. So really, the house could be much more massive and still comply, just if there was a, 2.5-story structure coming up from where the deck is. So in a way, those coverage calculations are a little misleading. Yeah, again, it shows I guess you can scroll down a little bit more. Yeah, this is that side elevation without the nice plants on it. And it shows you can see the garage, the dotted line of the existing garage roof, the dotted line of the existing roof, and then we're going up a little bit more. One of the things I didn't point out in the photographs is that this house is actually lower than the adjacent house to 101 Bel Air, which actually has an occupied sort of half floor, I guess. This is, can't tell exactly how much lower, but if you looked at that, you can go back to that photograph if you want to, but it shows, since it's a dead-on photograph, very clearly that it's actually lower. Again, back elevation, I think you saw the rendering. You saw the same elevation with the fence in front of it, so it's a bit redundant. And the sections through is really sort of more construction drawing type drawing. Doesn't have much more information pertinent to planning board review, I don't think. Can certainly describe them if you wish, but I think it's all, yeah, you can keep going down. And then just a series of photographs. This is the back of the house currently. I mean, again, the garage addition is going to be where that sort of basketball hoop is. This is going to be pulled back. And the deck is being, well, it's going to be rebuilt completely. It just happens to have similar size, but it's going to be pulled back from where it is now. This is just an illustration, I think, here. If you, when I calculate the sky exposure plan, I'm required to do it from this very low elevation at this corner, which the building code, didn't print out the language, but has language that allows for an allowance for that kind of aberration in terms of calculating the sky exposure plane from a point like that, which is like right there. And everything else other than that does comply, and this one largely complies. And another point I guess I'd make is that with the sky exposure plane, there are allowances such as dormers, which can be 30%, I think, or a third of the elevation, or 7 feet, and this little corner is far less than a dormer would interfere with the sky exposure plane. This is just the adjacent property from the backyard. They all have these elevated decks, these houses, from the neighbors on either side, just given the topography, and beautiful views of the river. And this is, I don't know why I put that one in there, actually.
Are you going to do bathrooms next? What are you doing?
Bathroom, yeah. Is this enough? I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably.
And then, yeah, this is, I don't know. I just threw some photographs. Oh, I guess, do you want to see the neighborhood context?
Okay.
I mean, we can go up. Those are sort of the more, I'm sorry, no, you can go up the other way. Just because oh, this is important, actually. This is the retaining wall that was built on top of the existing retaining wall. In fact, we started with the premise of, okay, let's try to legalize this as is, and we realized we just really have to push it back and improve the appearance. So it's going to be pushed back again with extensive planting all the way along the side, and decent size plants. They're not going to have little puny potted plants. The sizes on the drawings, I can't remember exactly, but they're good size plants. And again, the neighbor to the west is very pleased with the proposal. This is a little, this is the existing wall. We're going to take this down by 2 tiers, 2.5, hoping. And because when this was done, the contractor was not aware, I guess, that, as many of you probably know, if you start filling dirt around an existing tree, you will probably kill it. It's not healthy for the tree. So we're going to take that all down so that the grade around the tree remains as it was. Take this corner down. That's just the existing house to the south on the same side of the street. That, for some reason, is the same picture. I don't know why. We're very close to the same.
Now, you will recall that at our last meeting, the members of the planning board agreed to have a site visit, and we have done that since the last meeting.
I think you did it before.
Several of the members have been on site, so that we are familiar with the site.
And this is Bel Air looking to the south. And just looking a little bit southeast to the house up above. I did have a section that showed this is quite high relative to the existing house in terms of preserving views and so forth. In fact, the photograph was taken of both of the houses next to each other from up in this vicinity. Again, the house, so their views will still be preserved over the existing house. And again, we're just sort of turning slowly around towards looking up to the north.
It's on a hill. Many of us live on a hill.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's all hills, Dobbs Ferry. So, yeah, and this, I'm just slowly panning around, and this the house to the,
Okay.
To the north on Bel Air.
Thank you. Now.
And I think that's
enough.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, I don't know, do you need to see products? I don't know. There's lighting that we're proposing, all of it, no lighting to adjacent property. Be done on this project, impervious paving and so forth.
The chairman,
I'm sorry.
you wanted to say something?
He wanted to close.
No, I was going to say that it's a public hearing, and I was going to ask if anybody wanted to speak.
We have some people here.
Yeah,
present.
well, anybody that wishes to speak, please go to the microphone. Thank you now.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Stephen Accinelli from Veneruso, Curto, Schwartz, and Curto. On behalf of the owners of 101 Bel Air, they are here with me this evening. That's Natalie Trojan and Bruce Jonas. I'd like to start out with congratulating the village for its very comprehensive vision plan, zoning ordinance, and residential design guidelines. I have reviewed them in detail in reviewing this application. And I've also reviewed the pre-submission hearings and also the zoning board hearings. And I'm here on behalf of my clients in opposition to the application as it currently exists before this board. There are a number of significant issues that this application presents in terms of character, as well as in terms of specifics and technical issues that I think this board needs to really take a hard look at when they review and consider this application. These improvements, if approved, will last forever. They will be there. This will redefine the character of the Riverview Manor neighborhood. When people are looking to buy a house, they drive into the neighborhood, they look around, they look at the houses, they look at the area, and they make a decision based on what they see, whether or not they want to live in this neighborhood. Presumably, the current applicant has done that. However, the proposed renovation work is out of character with the existing structures and single-family homes in that neighborhood. It does not blend in with the Riverview Manor neighborhood. As beautiful as it may be, it does not fit in with the other homes in the neighborhood. The vision plan in particular and the residential design guidelines are very well articulated and reasoned guidelines, rules, duties, criteria that this village spent an exorbitant amount of time and effort in preparing. And they are very, very detailed and really go out of their way to, I think, put homeowners, applicants, and their representatives on notice of what it is that this village looks at when it is reviewing applications before the AHRB and before the planning board. And we would respectfully submit that the applicant, pursuant to the current plans, violates many of these design guidelines and the vision plan standards. I submitted to the village my written submittal. I assume that or I hope the board members and village staff and representatives had the opportunity to read that. I'm not going to go through that and read that document in detail, but I think that the zoning ordinance is here for a reason. I think a number of the components of this application need to be tightened up. I think some of the analyses and the results need to be reviewed and confirmed by the village and its staff and third-party consultants. As an example, there are numerous instances where the representative for the applicant made statements, assume, largely complies with the zoning. You know, we don't largely comply with the zoning code. The zoning code is very specific, and it's measured, and it's detailed, and it either complies or it doesn't. It doesn't, applications don't comply in the spirit of the zoning code. They must comply. The retaining wall is another example. I'm still not sure what the status of that retaining wall is in terms of its legalization. Does it need variances? Does it need separate site plan review? The infill is another concern that I know that the board brought up. The board has brought up and recognized a number of these issues as part of the pre-submission application process. The steep slope concerns, I think, still exist. I think the drainage, stormwater management plan, at least based on the submittals that I've looked at, still exist. In addition, there are scale, character, and construction issues that I think this board needs to consider and address related to, again, compliance with the very specific requirements of the zoning ordinance. My clients work from home, as many people do, and they spend a lot more time in their house, like many people do, and interruptions during construction, use, and occupancy have a different effect today than they did perhaps more than a few years ago. So I think, again, something else that this board should consider as part of this review and approval process. I would also encourage the board to keep this public hearing open beyond tonight's meeting so that revisions, if they are made, can be reviewed by the public, and we would have a further opportunity to comment as this application proceeds. I have nothing further. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if anyone has any questions of me, I'm available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a public hearing.
Okay. Mr. Acanelli was right on target with most of these comments.
You have to state your name.
I'm sorry?
You have to state your name and address.
Oh, my name is Phil Jones. I live diagonally across the street from the project on Bel Air Drive.
Thank you.
I've submitted a couple of letters. I just wanted to make sure you've all gotten them. And I'm not going to go through all the items and repeat those if you have, but I'm here and you have an opportunity to ask me any questions about that letter if you want. But it is pretty extensive. There are a lot of issues. My main concern is that it's compliance with the land use regulations of the village.
The what? I'm sorry?
Pardon me?
What are you concerned with?
With the land use regulations.
Land use regulations.
Zoning code, let's go back to LWRP, the vision plan, the residential design guidelines, and the zoning code. And in many, many respects, the proposed project does not comply with the requirements of the regulations. And I summarized that in my letter, but there's a lot more detailed information that could come from that. I think under site plan review, there's some other reports or analysis that I would request, and I did that in my letter. I have real issues with the steep slope analysis, and I had requested and suggest that you get or have an impartial engineer or surveyor perform a steep slope analysis. That's critical to determining the building coverage area on the site. I do feel, as I've said in the letter and others, that the scale of the project is just too big for the lot. This is a steep slope lot. It slopes 28% from the front of the lot at Bel Air Drive to the rear lot line. That exceeds the 25% in the code. That says anything above that should be a priority concern for the village, and I think it should be. And I have questions about the measurement of steep slopes on the submittal. I have done a quick submittal, which I submitted with one of my letters, that shows that a very different result in terms of calculating the steep slope areas and the area of deductions, which determines how much you can build on the site. So I really urge the village to have an independent analysis done to look at the slopes on the site. Also, we're talking about the size of the building and what they're saying. The gross square footage of the size, I summarized that in my letter too. I think it exceeds most other properties in the area, in the surrounding area. And I would suggest, and the code suggests this as well, I think under the AHRB section 317, that a massing diagram be done to compare the relative size of the proposal to the existing buildings. The proposed building, it looks beautiful and it is on the renderings, but in fact it's a 2-story, almost 70-foot long, massive wall, and nothing like that exists on Bel Air Drive to my knowledge. So a massing diagram, I think, would put that more in perspective than just looking at an isolated rendering of a single building with no relationship to its surrounding buildings. So massing diagram, I would recommend that the board also have prepared. A view analysis in the natural resources section of the zoning code, it suggests a view analysis. And I mean, what's proposed will affect the views mostly of uphill neighbors, including me, but several neighbors are going to be affected by the proposed building. So a view
In what way?
It's going to block the view of the Hudson River. We have beautiful views of the Hudson River, daytime and nighttime. So they're building a 20 some odd addition on the north side of the house that will be almost 4 stories tall, including the roof.
Will be higher than the current roof?
Yes. A few feet, but we don't know how much higher because there's no dimension on the drawings that I could find. So yes, it'll be a little higher. I mean, maybe he could tell us.
That wasn't my impression.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
You guys can't. Yeah, he has to talk to us.
Don't start.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, I have a direct line of sight to the Hastings Water Tower from my house, and that's going to disappear. As well as nighttime views are very important. Another issue I really have is lighting, the proposed lighting, and I addressed that in one of my letters to you too. But nighttime views, looking at the barges going up and down the river, the lights in the Palisades, the opposite side of the river, it's just beautiful. But what he's proposing is to create, a Christmas tree with all kinds of lights on the exterior of the house. It's just not appropriate. Another thing I would recommend would be an arborist. Look at the trees on the site. And I think Valerie at one point suggested a tree evaluation plan, but I would urge that in your letters. I'm not sure. Yeah, but an arborist or a tree plan would be helpful. There is one specimen tree in the southwest corner of the lot that's just a beautiful mature tree. It's over 4 feet in diameter. There's an oak tree on the property. It's over 5 feet on.
Are they going to be affected by this plan?
Of course. The wall that you just saw the picture is within 5 feet and within the critical root zone of the specimen tree. And you can't build a wall without putting a footing in, and you can't build a footing without trenching through the roots of the tree. So it definitely will affect the tree. And it's a concern. It's already had an effect, I think. But to take down the retaining wall, move it set back, puts it closer to the tree trunk. Another trenching through the roots. So it will have a concern. So I think an arborist to look at it, to suggest protective measures to preserve that tree is important. I couldn't see anything on the drawings about preserving trees even during construction. You should put barricades around the trees, keep construction activity away from the protected trees, protected by our village code, which is any tree 8 inches in diameter or more. There's also some major village trees in the right-of-way at the front of the house that could be affected by construction activity coming and going on that site. Those need to be, and yeah, I mean, you smile, but those are critical trees to the neighborhood, critical to me to look at them, but really, they need to be protected and provisions made to do that. So, again, I won't go through it. I could spend a lot of time to go through all these issues, but you have my comments, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I have 3 people online that want to hear better.
Take the comment. Sure, yeah.
Hi. I'm Sarah Colombo. I'm at 106 Magnolia Drive, so sort of a neighbor diagonally through the back. And I just wanted to make a few comments, although I did already submit a letter, but I have a few notes. My overall feeling about this improvement, this renovation, is that it's true, it does help define our neighborhood, but like in the most positive way in my mind, because it's a beautiful thing to take something that's already existing. That's nice, that's okay. And really put an effort into making it great. I think that what my neighbors have done is put a lot of consideration, a lot of time, and a lot of artistic energy into this renovation. And now they're making what I think is an objectively better statement with their home, which does affect me as a neighbor because it makes my neighborhood better and it makes my property value go up. But this is what makes our neighborhood fantastic. And I'm just going to briefly read from my letter so that I can get it on record, my opinion of the project. But having reviewed this plan closely and having also attended the previous planning board meeting for this property, as a neighbor, I want to confirm my personal support for this project. I really think that everything is being done in good taste with careful consideration. And although my own house is 160 years old, I know that its juxtaposition against a mix of contemporary architecture, mid-century moderns, and traditional colonials is what makes our neighborhood unique and beautiful. And in order to preserve this, I do very much care that renovations are tastefully made. In fact, this is not my first time in front of one of these committees, and I've virtually attended many AHRB meetings because I love our town. I want to live here for a very long time, and I want it to look good. So this is very important to me. I think that the previously approved variances are aesthetically important to the renovation and pretty minor. The style of the proposed house is a tasteful update and will sit perfectly in this lovely, eclectic neighborhood. The neutral color is unassuming and in keeping with the architecture. Proposed changes to the landscape are reasonable, both improving the property itself and adding privacy to the adjoining neighbor to the west. I hope to remain in our home for decades to come and feel that the proposed improvement both enhances the neighborhood and increases my property value. Thank you for your consideration of my opinion as a neighbor to the property.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bruce Jonas, 101 Bel Air. My wife Natalie and I have lived in our dream home for 11 years. We chose it for the block. It's green, it's quiet, it's historic, it's got very interesting character, which the architecture contributes a lot to, and that's why we feel it's a really unique place. When we first saw the renderings, the drawings for the plans, we said to Gabe, and he acknowledged that it really looks like we're getting the rear end of the design. We're getting walls and retaining walls and more height. We would be losing our views of the Hudson River to the north and the Tappan Zee Bridge. So something that Niall said that they would like to have, they would be taking that away from us that we currently have. In addition, we would really be with a parking lot basically a few feet from our windows with cars going in and out all day, all night. We would really lose a lot of our privacy, and we really feel that the design as it is, and hopefully that you saw when you did the site visit, really creates an alleyway that you might see more in an outer borough than in the green historic neighborhood that we live in, with just, driveways and cars right up against the kitchen window of another house. We do think that there have been some wonderful renovations on the very block that we think are models that could be followed. So at 117 Bel Air, which was done a few years ago, it really improved the neighborhood. It was not highly disruptive, and it's a much nicer version of the house that was there before, and adds to the existing character of the neighborhood. The work at 125 Bel Air that's being done right now is similar. It is an improvement on the house, and it fits in perfectly with the character of the neighborhood that we've known and loved. And it hasn't added, neither of them have added, floor-to-ceiling windows with exterior lighting. Neither of them have put a driveway right up next to a neighbor's kitchen. They have been, I think, completely in character and in scale with the neighborhood. Just add that, in terms of the massing and the proportion as seen from the street, I think you'll see if you look at the houses in the neighborhood, they almost all have like something that's one story here, and that whether it's on the side or in the front, and then the setback. So you don't have anything that's massive like that. And I think that's part of the charm and part of the historic character that I think it's important to maintain. And so I think that, especially for us, for the people who are going to lose their views, for the people who are going to feel more hemmed in, people who are going to see that we have people, contrary to what some people here have said, we see people walking by every day. And what they do is they look at the views of the river and the sunset between the houses. And now with an extra driveway, with more retaining walls, that's the kind of thing that changes the character of the neighborhood that we've all enjoyed for so long. So I think really that this work, and it's of a scale, like moving walls that were just built with machinery and dump trucks and bulldozers and all that work that was done 3 years ago, and now they're moving them again. I mean, it's almost commercial scale of this project is lasting, I'm sure well over a year. So I think it's really disruptive to the community as it's being done, and it will be a change for the worse to our lifestyles when it's done. So I think it's a perfect example of why there's an AHRB and a planning board, and so we would request that you deny the proposal as it is, because as it is, it doesn't work for the neighborhood and for the people who are closest, most affected, and long-term invested in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Excuse me, what number are you on that street?
101.
101, thank you.
To the south.
Yep, thank you.
To the south.
Hi, my name is Patricia Winder, and I'm on the other side of the house. Some of you may know me. And thank you for the compliment on our house and our renovation. And thank you, Phil. You did a very good job as the architect. And we too appreciate the process. I wrote a letter in favor of this project. We happen to be gifted by history with a double lot. So a lot of those people who stop and watch the sunset are actually looking at the lot between us and Gabe and Alice's house. We have the same situation that Natalie and Bruce will have with our neighbor, the Golubs, on the north side. And I have to say that it's, we are used to it. It's in keeping with the distances between many of the houses in our neighborhood. And more to my point and our view of this project, when we moved to the neighborhood, many of the houses were very similar. They were all builders' houses built between 1958 and 1960, and you can tell which builder built them because they're pretty much cookie cutter. We set out with Phil to change that, and we're able to do that. The Golubs have done a nice job with their renovation. And I think that Gabe and Alice, what they've done here is soften. They both, I can't speak to Bruce and Natalie on the south side, but from our perspective, they've softened the mass of the house as it faces us with a rounded end to the house. And lighting, I'm sure, is something that could be looked at and discussed with them. But overall, I do think it's a tasteful addition to the neighborhood. I think it breaks up the monotony of the 1950s builder house, and I approve of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Justin Golub. I'm at 125 Bel Air Drive, so 2 houses to the north, and I'm speaking in favor of the property, and thank you for the compliment on our renovation, which is still ongoing. Appreciate it. When I first heard about the plans from Gabe and Alice, I thought it was nice, tasteful, a great upgrade to the block. I'm actually somewhat surprised that there's opposition, but I just want to make 2 comments on 2 categories. So first, fit. In terms of fitting in with the neighborhood, I think one of the charms of Riverview Manor is that it's sort of eclectic. On Bel Air Drive, the house that we're both on, there are just within maybe 500 feet of our house, there are Tudors, colonials, ranches, modern houses. They're all kind of different, and I think that is sort of what enhances the character. There is no single monolithic style, and I think this proposed style is nice. It upgrades what's currently there. It's modern. I think it would fit in very well. In terms of the scale, there are actually, from my house, many larger houses within a 2-block radius. It's not an excessively large house. In my opinion, it sort of fits in with the lot. I never really foresaw a problem with that. I think it's a nice, tasteful design. It's a nice update to relatively, not to insult your current house, but a sort of modest house of a specific era. It upgrades it. I personally am delighted to see it upgraded, and I think will enhance my property value and the property values of my neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's some people online, I guess, huh?
Yeah, 4 people.
Fire away.
I'm here, that's probably,
No.
I have been, doesn't have the ID.
Oh, okay. I'm asking him to unmute. He has to like unmute from
Why don't you go to the next one and then?
You could tell them to unmute.
I'm hitting ask to unmute.
They can hear us, though.
Unmute.
Someone's got to put the kids to bed.
Oh.
You might need to get to.
I think I just unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Monica Shulman. Hi.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. I don't know if you can see me or not, but I don't think so. My name is Monica Shulman. I live at 141 Bel Air Drive, so a few doors down. And I just want to piggyback on what some of my neighbors have already said and fully support this project. So I'm actually going to read from a letter that I have drafted and will be sending tonight, but just for ease, I'd like to read from it. By way of introduction, we are Monica and Doug Shulman, and we reside at 141 Bel Air Drive. We have lived in our home since June 2015, and we are writing to express our support for the architectural and construction plans of our friends and neighbors at 111 Bel Air Drive, Alice and Gabriel Dabiri. We have known Alice and Gabe since they moved down the street in May 2018, and since that time, they have become our close personal friends. We fully support their plans for their new home on our street. We first fell in love with Dobbs Ferry over 15 years ago when we started visiting family and friends living in nearby Hastings. What drew us to our town, and specifically to Riverview Manor, was the diverse and eclectic style of each of the homes here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. When it came time to find our own home, we were very drawn to the diverse architectural character of our neighborhood. We love that each house is unique and adds so much to the story and fiber of our community. Every house around us is different. After growing up on Long Island, where every house on our block was identical, being in Dobbs was a much welcome and happy change. Our neighbors next to our 100-plus-year-old Tudor-style home live in a mid-century modern home. Across the street is a contemporary home built top to bottom less than 20 years ago. Behind us is a Spanish colonial-style home, etc. Alice and Gabe's new home will only add to the vibe and character of our amazing street. This new house and landscaping, along with the existing trees and opening up of the property, will add value to all of our properties. And personally, we cannot wait to see it come to life. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else online?
Hi, how are you doing? I think we just unmuted ourselves. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. This is the Power family. We are at 96 Magnolia Drive. Most of what we believe has already been said. We just wanted to emphasize our support for the project. We think it's great. We think Gabe and Alice has reached out to everyone, addressed their concerns, included feedback. So I think overall, I wish I could do it. It looks great and we're supportive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We just want to echo too. I think a lot of what people have mentioned is the different styles of the home. So we feel like the fact that it doesn't exactly match every other is part of what we know that we'll love about it. And we're excited. I mean, it's really stunning. And I think to Sarah's point, it's only going to elevate things. So we understand that construction for anybody in any neighborhood is always a challenge, and it's not to be taken lightly. But I think they really seem to have addressed that their footprint is within what other homes are, the square footage same. So I think they've really done everything to make this in compliant with all of the regulations and to make it lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Hello, good evening. My name is Paul Colombo. I am a Dobbs Ferry resident and a neighbor to the DeBeery's at 106 Magnolia Drive. I'm also a former member of the AHRB for 3 or 4 years. And I just wanted to also call in and give my support to the DeBeery's and their proposed addition. I think it's a very attractive house. We're to the north and to the west, so we're kind of, in the line of sight of where the bulk of the mass of the addition is proposed, and I couldn't be more pleased with their proposal and Niall's architecture and his design. I think he did a great job, as he is so capable of doing. And I think it's an attractive addition, and I look forward to them building it as proposed. I think the materials they're proposing are high quality and in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, which is really, as everybody else said, is eclectic, it's varied, but it's high quality, and that's what the Beeries are proposing to do. And I think in such a way that makes it a vast improvement on the house that is present there right now. So I look forward to them building this out as proposed. I think also I'm very pleased with their intention of doing everything possible to keep the two extremely large, beautiful, gorgeous trees. I think there's a beech to the southwest and an oak to the north. That they're going to keep on the lot and make sure that they survive. And I think it's going to be beautiful, and I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is a public hearing tonight. There is no draft resolution. I think this board was thinking about keeping that public hearing open till next month.
Right.
The applicant still needs to respond both to my memos and Anthony's memos, so it might be best if the applicant just takes in everything that they heard tonight and then respond accordingly to the board, so that also gives you time to digest their responses.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
You asked if you can respond to some things now.
Can I respond to a few of the comments now?
Yeah.
Sure.
If you can be
Briefly.
If you can be brief.
Just a few of the major ones, and then, I didn't see any memos, by the way, from either of you, but, fine.
Because it was last
Because they didn't get-
You didn't submit anything.
Oh, yeah, no, I submitted I definitely submitted. I had a discussion with Dan about this. I submitted the pushback retaining wall and the details and so forth, and even a letter. But anyway, be that as it may. Just a couple of things I wanted to respond to. It was characterized that I sort of was saying, oh, this largely complies. This project complies 100% with the code. What I was referring to, I think, when I said largely complies, that I was talking about the covered front porch, which largely complies with code, except for the fact that, and we were required to get a zoning variance for that, just 1 foot difference that took it out of compliance. So I was referring to what required zoning variances when I used that terminology of largely complies without any variances. But it certainly all complies. Certainly we can do tree protection around the trees. We love those trees too. There's no way any of those trees are going to be damaged whatsoever. There's characterization of the property being 25% slope. Of course, it doesn't work that way. I mean, if you have the volume of a house, you have one level at the top and a level at the bottom. You don't do steep slope calculations that way. And if you have a retaining wall that is breaking the plane, between the higher level and the lower level, you don't count that as 25% slope. You've been to the site, you can see it's not that steep. It's really not. So the steep slope is absolutely correct. The calculations are correct. It was suggested, but Dan and I had a little discussion. We can do a little more. I did an interpolation of the existing slope prior to the legalization, which is 14%. I think you suggested we can do a series. Instead of just an average, we can do one slope from the footing, from the grade of the back of the house to the existing wall, say 10 feet apart, or it's all there. I mean, I could do a series of them, and so you just can see a more precise average of that slope. But I'm convinced that the allocation of steep slope area that we're allocating towards that legalization far exceeds the actual steep slope that's under that earth. We don't have sonar to figure it out. Another thing, the big tree, the beech tree, we can just take down that wall completely around it. There's no reason to have it. It doesn't make any sense. Sort of can take down 3 tiers, take it all down, so we won't get near the roots at all. Absolutely. And the other thing we can do, we don't have to have that parking space. We can just get rid of that parking space. So I think, those were some of the main concerns, so that we know the retaining wall is 3 feet high at the highest point where we were doing that car's parking space, but just take it out.
Good.
But other than that, I think you're mischaracterizing the view issue from 101. Bel Air, we're not blocking any views. I mean, you have the whole back expanse is not blocked at all. You have gorgeous view from your deck, gorgeous view from all your back windows, not interfering with that whatsoever. There's really no view blocking there. So anyway, that's, I guess I just wanted to hit the main points, and then obviously we can respond for the next planning board.
Good.
Thank you.
I'd like to,
Lighting, never mind.
go ahead. Just I mean, I've been looking at your prevailing front setback plan of there's 13 footprints on this, and 6 of those footprints are larger than 111.
Yeah, which I think I
So,
pointed out.
and they're all different shapes, so it's, you know, it's not as if it's a standard form.
Like I
of
said, I
building.
think because we're including the deck as part of that building coverage, which is that grade, not a grade, first floor grade, which we have to do. The house is not big compared to this
Yeah,
lot.
I'd say
It could
it's
be much more
It's
massive.
sort of in the middle of the sizes of the buildings that are on this plan.
But I guess I can respond, and I'll try to find whatever your, still need to see.
There's no new map.
There's no, well, okay.
I mean, I could say, we did got an email response with perk tests, and I saw.
Well, that was the last minute, so.
I think that came in late.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
So we're gonna review.
I sent it to you the minute he sent me the results.
We're gonna review that for the next.
Absolutely,
But I
absolutely.
mean, I don't know if maybe he should make a full submission.
Yeah, I think
I'll make
The
a
full
packet,
set
yeah.
for the next meeting, so there's no mistake.
Like I said, that was purely last minute because he just finished the work, so. And, can I say one more thing? The perk test also allowed us to look at the fill issue. I mean, we have certification from the builder that the fill is fine and clean. The fill that we saw when we did the perk test is absolutely fine. And, you know, this fill, you don't require testing. When I say, if I was doing this, we were doing this the right way around as far as the wall and the fill is concerned, you wouldn't require some kind of special, you know, technical certification. Clean fill is not all that clean. It actually allows bits of brick and bits of all sorts of things. It's just not toxic, you know? I mean, there's no way the fill is an issue.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
And excuse me,
You really need
if you're
that
going
for
to
the-
speak, if you're going to speak, please.
My name is Gabriel DeBerry. I live at 111 Bel Air. So I guess culminating this meeting, is there anything you need outside of the responses that you just mentioned? Or is there any other concern by the board that we should be preparing for next month? Or are we done with those responses that you just noted?
I think you just put forth a couple major design changes, so I would incorporate those. Right, with the parking space, you said you're gonna remove.
Oh, for the parking, for the
walls,
parking
right,
space,
so we'll
okay.
draw that.
Right, I would suggest, like I said, submit a full set of plan time for the next meeting. We're gonna review what was submitted late on the perk test and stormwater.
Okay.
On our end.
Okay.
And I don't know if there's anything further satisfying Dan on the slope.
The steep slope that
That
we
also
spoke
needs
about.
This
How we can
resolved
redo
as
the
first.
steep slope.
Good.
Well,
Submitted in the proper
There's
channel.
no steep slope there, it just goes to.
And then will we have another public hearing like this? Should we speak it, will we speak again next month or?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, this hearing will be adjourned until next month, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
The assumption, I mean, people that spoke here tonight, they're on record,
Yeah.
so they don't necessarily have to come back.
Got it.
Good,
Okay. And apologies, Phil, for interrupting you earlier. Thanks.
thank you. All right.
So we're going to continue the public
We
hearing?
were going to continue our public hearing to our next meeting. So thank you very much, everybody, tonight.
Well, let's, wait,
I'm sorry,
make a motion?
that's a motion.
And a
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
aye,
And that's March 2nd, I believe?
Yes.
yes,
Yep.
Yep.
thank you.
Next item on our agenda, 2 Osceola Avenue, public hearing for proposed interior and exterior alterations, second floor dormer and exterior deck replacement. Clear the room.
Yeah. I got a long
How was that drink you had, Peter? Huh?
Ready to go
You
home?
didn't have to hurry back. Turned out you could have kept drinking. Could have kept drinking. It sounded pretty Controversial.
It has its ebbs and flows.
Yeah, and the top. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, you know what, I think, when you start presenting, and I think
Just do it again from there.
What's going on with that? Drag.
Somebody grab it USB.
Yeah, that's really not right. You know, it's not
Do
fair
they-
to the applicants.
Do they use the same laptop? I don't know why it's not.
You know, maybe
Somebody can't come and just plug in their own laptop?
that's, well, no, maybe that's like what we should require is
Okay, so what do we have
presentations
here?
in USB or something beforehand, so it can be.
Two
on this
Osceola?
computer.
Yes.
Every time-
Where are we with that? Is that, I thought they were all, you know, non-compliance issues.
Whole group.
Let me know.
Good evening. My name is Nick Faustini. I'm an architect on behalf of the O'Connor residents at 2 Osceola Avenue. We presented last month. We received some planning board comments, some comments from engineering as well as village planners. Some of those comments involved our application exceeding coverage requirements or impervious surface requirements. At that time, we also had a future pool shown on the site plan. That pool was intended to be for the future and not part of this application, so we actually removed it from the application because it was creating an impervious surface issue with the sliding scales zoning regulations. So that pool's been removed, and that brought us into compliance. So the application meets all the zoning code requirements as far as I know. We received comments from planning that also said that it's acceptable at this time in terms of impervious surface coverages. We've also revised our application to include stormwater management design. We've reduced the impervious surfaces to be less than 400 square feet. In doing so, that I guess, scale down the amount of stormwater management design required. We can just, this is just the cover letter we resubmitted in our response last month. So what we did is reduce some of the coverage requirements. They're indicated in red in the driveway area. The driveway is to the bottom of the page. Some of the other red hatching that you see there represents a new roof covering over the garage that's at the left side. On the right side, we're rebuilding an existing wood deck that's adjacent to the pond. And at the rear, this small little hatched area over the footprint, that's a second floor dormer addition. Some of the planning and engineering comments received also were with respect to the proximity to the pond and the streams. We have inquired with New York State DEC. We sent a jurisdictional screening letter. We were advised that they no longer provide a response. They just referred us to a pamphlet or a code that allows us to sort through it ourselves to look if it's actually under New York State regulations. My understanding is that the stream is a Class C, SC. That means it's suitable for fishing. It's not for drinking water, not for swimming. It's not regulated by New York State. So the stream, you'll see at the top part of the page, continues, and then also in the wetlands drawings, it continues further south. The pond itself is also not regulated. It's less than 10 acres. It's actually 0.3 acres. Once it's that criteria, it falls under basically essentially part of the stream regulations.
Right.
So considering that they're Class C, SC, that means it's not regulated by New York State. In our previous submissions, we did say that we're replacing the deck in kind. We felt like we weren't really encroaching on the pond or the stream. I did have one footing that was encroaching on the pond in our previous application, which I pulled back out of the pond a few feet. So we can start to scroll. This page would be great. So again, we're just showing the pond, the zoning map, aerial view. Down here on the bottom right, if we just scroll down a little bit more, it just shows that stream where, as I was mentioning, continues on the left side. goes into the pond and continues on the left side. This is 500-year floodplain. It's not subject to the application. We can keep going, scrolling down. Stormwater management design was introduced. We did receive a memo this month saying that the dry well we propose is too close to the property line. We had set it back 5 feet. More than happy to move it to 10 feet to comply with the village code. We have plenty of room to do so. Can continue to scroll down, please. A landscape plan was submitted with the initial submission, but the board or planning and engineering didn't have an opportunity to review it, or it wasn't part of the package. This is the landscaping plan. Sorry if we could scroll down a little bit more. We have plantings shown along the front of the house, along the entrance to the house, in front of the deck, along the privacy. We can go further down. A survey was also requested. It was resubmitted as part of the resubmission. These are some photos, if we can continue to scroll down. Just showing the existing home. There's 2 Osceola Avenue. We have a view up Osceola Avenue, a view of the front in the second image. This is a view of the pond. Another view of the pond looking towards that subject house. Again, another view of Osceola, the pond and the house in the distance. And some close photographs along the actually perimeter of the house. The house is somewhat of a mixed contemporary traditional. It was built in the late 90s, early 2000s. The owners purchased the house over a year ago, and I'm just interested in updating it and just bringing it more into a somewhat contemporary appearance. We can continue to scroll down. I'm sorry, this is a view of the pond. So again, there was concern about being too close to the pond. The work that we're proposing are actual footings supporting the elevated deck. So while the deck looks like it's immediately adjacent to the pond, the footings are set back somewhat. There's currently substantial cantilevers on that deck, which are causing deflection. So if you see all these little posts underneath, those are posts that are trying to push the deck up because the cantilevers are too excessive. We're going to reduce the cantilevers and better support the deck. We can continue to scroll down. These are just some engineering details. Sky plane details. These are the foundation plans. I'll just go through. The old footings, the old outline of the deck. Existing floor plans. We can continue. Existing second floor, existing elevations on all sides. Proposed deck plan, just squaring off the edge to give it more of a contemporary appearance. This is the foundation plan. It's a crawl space with a very small mechanical basement. And keep going down. First floor plan, most of the work is interior. This is the deck plan. It didn't fit on the page, so you have a match line. You'll see it on the next few pages. We can continue down. We are proposing a portico, a covered portico in the location of an existing uncovered porch area. We can continue to scroll down. There's that small dormer in the back to add a master bathroom addition, a laundry room. And keep going. Again, the dormer roof lines. We are introducing a new gable dormer just for aesthetics over the front entrance, matching the existing roof lines. These are the rest of the deck plans off the match lines. So these are the new footings. The line of the pond is shown there as well. This is the new deck plan. We can keep scrolling down. Proposed front elevation. So again, just continuing the roof line. It's a 9-on-12. We're continuing it straight up, and then returning it back down, and then just trying to define the front entrance a little bit more. And then we're also creating a front portico. The roof will be black asphalt shingle. The upper part of this of the house will be a white hardy panel. The lower part will be charcoal hardy siding. All of the windows would be replaced with black windows. And we're proposing a metal roof on the lower part, just to give it a little bit more flair. We can go down a little bit more. This is the view of the pond side. changing the railings to more contemporary railings with horizontal cable lines. You'll see the dormer additions in the distance and the front portico addition on the left. This is the existing roof structure that's going to remain unchanged. We can go down to the rear elevation. Rear elevation is generally the same, just new siding, new windows as discussed previously, and the dormer that we're proposing over the laundry room. And the master bath is in this general area. This is the left side exterior elevation, and this is that roof over the garage that I mentioned earlier. The metal roof can tie into the front porch. And then continue to go down, and these are just some general cross-sectional details, architectural drawings that we can continue to scroll through.
Yeah.
I think these are more technical drawings.
Yeah, thank you. The public hearing, I'd like to move, we open the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone public that wishes to speak to this?
Nobody online?
No.
Going once? Going twice?
I have a question. A9 looks like, is that the new, I'm having a little trouble rendering this. Is that the new, does that show the new deck line?
No resolution.
A9.
Yeah, drawing A9.
I'm sorry.
My question is, it looks like that, the deck is cantilevering over the edge of the pool, the pond at that point.
It is.
Is that legit?
We're waiting for DEC.
Well, it doesn't sound like they're going to answer the question.
Right.
Right.
It is existing like that now.
Okay.
I could say that with the original approval.
So you don't have any issues with duplicating that?
No, it was more the footings.
I can see that.
Right.
But,
But if they're saying that, it's.
okay. Valerie, any issues from you on that?
I was just going to add, I think the only way DEC would, and I think for a Class C stream, they would require a permit if there's disturbance to the, in the waterway or on the, the embankment of the waterway. As long as they're far enough back, I don't think DEC would require a permit here. But it sounds like that they're not going to give those jurisdictional letters anyway. I didn't know that, but so unless there's something else in the code like restricting overhang over the pond, I'm not sure if
Right,
there
I
would be
didn't
any
see
other
anything-
restriction.
No, it's just that the only thing in your code really deals with, the environmental features to give to consideration and to try to avoid those as much as possible.
Well, that was my only concern. I think it's a
Did you
nice
say
project.
you were replacing a footing, or you were pushing it back?
We are replacing footings and adding new footings because currently the cantilevers are too substantial
Right.
for those deck edges.
And will those new footings interrupt the pond?
No, they're held back away from the pond. There was one in our previous submission that was encroached on the pond. I pulled it back
Right.
in this resubmission. We have provided, erosion control details, as many as possible to try to mitigate any kind of silt that might go in that direction, but all of the footings are out of the water line.
Okay, thank you.
That was really interesting about the class of streams and what the regulations were.
Apparently,
Did you know this before you started the project? or-
I worked on a project in Pleasantville where we received a jurisdictional screening letter. So when I reached out, I got a response saying that we no longer provide those letters. Here's a brochure. They were very kind. The brochure says Class C is regulated when it's standard T and TS, which is trout or trout spawning. This is not that case.
So it's interesting that it's okay to fish, but it's not okay to swim or drink.
It's non-contact. That would be a Class B. You
Wow.
can swim, or
But you can still eat the fish.
Well, there's usually.
doesn't say to eat the fish. It just says
If you can put it back.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay.
We don't have a resolution?
No, we don't have a resolution because the issue with the stream, those were still outstanding, but I can have a resolution ready for next month if you want to close the public hearing.
And we can approve, if they don't, we can approve it contingent on any, like, if the Cs, right?
Yes, and I can add that as a condition.
Can I just add one more thing on the stormwater? You can install a dry well. There's a simplified sizing method because it's such a small area. There's also the option of looking at the pond and just showing that there's no that there would be a negligible change, let's say, to the surface, water elevation.
Okay.
Because you do have a large pond on the property. So it's your option, but just want to make sure you're aware. You could kind of look at, we'd be satisfied either way with the stormwater.
Would that be a separate application to your office then, or?
No, I think just something on, some calculation on the, either on the plan or a separate, memo or something, just looking at that.
Okay.
To demonstrate that would work for us.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you. I move that we close the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, good. And next, we can deal with a resolution at our next meeting.
Okay.
Good,
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda, item number 4, 143 Ashford Avenue, continuation of pre-submission conference for proposed additions and alterations to home. Is there someone here to speak to 143 Ashford? Is there anybody online?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, my name is David Arango. I'm working for Rui Arriano. We are working for Mrs. Margot Fishhop, the owner of 143 Ashford Avenue. Can you slide the PDF?
I think so. And could you get a little bit closer to your microphone?
Yes, can you hear me there?
That's a little better.
Okay. I don't know. The sound's a little bit crazy. Okay, let me see if I put in more volume here.
Our technician is working on making you able to share.
You join the panel.
Should be able to share now. There it is.
Can you hear me?
And we see you.
And we see you.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Okay, and then the PDFs.
Share screen.
The thing is, we're not seeing his screen, we're seeing him.
Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Let me open the PDF.
Share screen button.
Can you see it now or not?
Nope.
We see you.
Oh, okay, let me see. Okay. Share. You got it?
There we go.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Now, in the previous meeting, the board suggests to us, to review something about the dormer we're doing for the addition in the attic. We start to make some analysis about the situation with the new addition in the upper floor, and we come out, maybe raise it up a little bit the roof, and to create like the area if you see there in the okay, hold it now.
Yes, we see it.
Okay. If you see here, to increase, the roof, not be like a little wings, more like it's an addition in the top and make the same shape we have in the neighborhood. And we come out, if this is the existing one with the sky exposure plane, and this is the new addition we provide with the analysis of the sky plane. We are not conforming, we're still in the same thing, but looks like we have like a little bit better vision of the thing because we avoid the winds in the sides. And the house looks like a little more conforming with the area we have, because looks like all the slopes or the roofs are pretty much the same. The thing is because we are a little bit higher in the grade, because this is the top of like the hill, that mean looks like a little bulky, but the things are the same, vision we have. We are conforming with the aesthetics of the neighborhood. There was the major concern of the board for the project. Because the house is a little small, Mrs. Fishhoff, didn't need the additional space in the top floor. Is any questions from the board?
No, I think it looks great.
And we make like a little, change the siding at the top, to don't show like a little, is too plain, is making like a more effort to make like things better.
Yeah, I think it's a nice addition.
I don't see height data in the zoning table.
Excuse me?
I don't see height data in the zoning table.
Oh, let me see.
We had it somewhere.
Oh, it's somewhere else here?
Is it in the first one that we?
Oh.
Your schedule.
I'm surprised.
I guess, Dan, have you looked at it?
It's on the, one of the elevations, shows
The
height.
first one, right, had the.
Yeah, it's on, I forget what sheet it is. It's one of the sheets that has
Zoning, he had
the
it.
Yeah. Even with the new addition.
Yeah, he was.
So I'm sorry, the new design is compliant?
Yes.
Okay.
No, the height hasn't changed though with the new design.
Really?
Correct.
The roof height has been raised up, so there could be a.
Looks like,
Yeah, I mean, the roof height is definitely higher. Unless it's, because it's more sloped, it's calculated
I
differently.
wasn't here last time.
The other
What was
one
it?
went out the side,
Yeah,
the same height.
Okay.
So he added that whole triangle.
Right, so no, we don't have the height on that. I don't have that.
Okay. So, David,
Yeah.
you need to get us height data.
Height,
He might be going back to a variance. He went to zoning already for a couple variances,
Okay.
but that was before the massing changed.
Well, I see there's some side yard issues, small side yard issues.
Those,
I wish I could see
those
the
are,
previous.
right?
I don't know. Couldn't say. If- But I also think it looks better.
So the lot coverage and impervious surface is over.
I don't see where it's.
Side yard is over.
Where did he go?
That whole triangle piece of
No existing non-compliance.
Here again.
is higher. That's what it was before.
So that's okay.
why don't we call for a public hearing and go on? We have problems with that.
I didn't go, no, I didn't.
Well, we don't have height data. We don't know if it's
The
conforming.
massing did change.
Yeah, right there.
That's this one.
In the interest of moving this along, should we
He should.
get this resolved for the next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah. But I think we're prepared to call for a public hearing
The next meeting.
at our next meeting.
From the last time.
Are we ready? Are you going to be, we going to be able to resolve these issues by the next meeting?
I'd need the height, because I don't know if he's going back for a variance or a waiver.
So,
You could call for a public hearing, and if for some reason he has to go back to the zoning board, you can just adjourn the public
Yeah,
hearing.
okay, all right, all right.
Yeah, let's do
Is
that.
there a
That
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you have to come back with height data.
Yeah,
Okay, no problem. We provide that.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Bye.
Yeah. Good night.
Good night.
Next item on our agenda, item number 5, 231 Clinton Avenue, public hearing for proposed interior and exterior renovation and addition.
No, that's fine.
Good evening.
Good
My
evening.
name's Dan Panesi, and I'm here for 231 Clinton. We had submitted revised drawings to address the planning engineering comments, primarily dealing with adding contours, some stormwater management. I see, based on the engineering comment letter yesterday, there remain two relatively minor, I think, comments, one being to clarify the components of the increase in impervious coverage of 1,075 square feet, and the other to make sure that we properly size the Coltex. I'm here to answer any questions. I'm hoping that we can close the public hearing and hopefully issue a resolution, perhaps conditionally, upon resolving these two engineering issues.
We'll open the public hearing first. I move we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good.
No one wants to, there's no one here to speak to this?
Going
Okay.
twice.
We don't have, do we have a resolution for this?
You do.
We do.
Right.
Well, then- Well, then I move we close the public hearing. All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What about the outstanding issues? Can they be, are they small enough to be addressed conditionally?
Yeah, they're pretty minor.
Good.
It's just maybe a mistake on the calculation. They might have to add one or two Coltex. It's fine.
Okay, good.
So I have two resolutions. The first will be for the planning board site plan, and then the second will be for ARB. I figured I just have a very short resolution because I figured that's
Okay.
easier than last time. So whereas the applicant is seeking site plan approval to build additions to the west and east ends of the main house. The property is located at 231 Clinton Avenue and is located in the OF2 one-family residential 2 zoning. Whereas the planning board conducted a duly noticed public hearing on February 2nd, and it was concluded on February 2nd, 2023, during which time all those wishing to be heard were given the opportunity to be heard and provide written comments. Whereas the planning board is familiar with the project site and the general vicinity, has reviewed the application in accordance with Chapter 300 zoning and land use of the village code. Now for therefore resolved, the planning board of the village of Dobbs Ferry determines that based upon the findings and reasoning set forth below, the site plan, the application for site plan approval is granted subject to the following conditions: that they adhere to the approved plans, which are dated November 18, 2022, and November 29, 2022. And then following conditions must be met before the planning board chair may sign the final approved plans, and it's our normal conditions, and specifically one dealing with that the applicant must address to the full satisfaction of the village engineer all outstanding stormwater maintenance agreement, and engineering issues raised in the hearings and documents submitted to the board. Do I have a motion?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good.
Right, then the second one is your architectural review, just very quickly, whereas the AHRB is familiar with the project site and general vicinity and has reviewed the application in accordance with Article Article 4, Architectural and Historic Review Board, and now therefore be resolved, the AHRB of the Village of Dobbs Ferry determines that based upon the findings and reasoning set forth below, the application for architectural and historic review approval is granted subject to the following conditions, and the only following condition is that the approved plans, except as otherwise noted, all work shall be performed in strict compliance with the approved plans submitted to the AHRB and approved by the AHRB.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda, item number 5, 231 Clinton Avenue, public hearing for proposed interior and exterior renovation and addition.
No, that's.
We just did that one.
Someone
We did that.
60 Washington.
Yeah,
60 Washington.
that's,
Number 6 here.
yeah, 6. Next item, item number 6, 60 Washington Avenue, public hearing for proposed additions to existing home.
Yes, I'm here to speak on that in a minute.
Oh, good.
We'll have that.
Yeah,
And-
sorry. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I see.
just the board, you know, I know this is on for public hearing. Both Anthony and I do not have any comments. We do have a resolution for approval. So as soon as the, you know,
Public
you're
hearing.
satisfied with the project and you can open up.
Thank you.
Yeah,
We had a couple of comments, but they're relatively minor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we need to go through?
Yeah, Patty, has anything changed since the last presentation?
I've added thousands of images and drawings and photographs. And I have a treatise that I've put together that basically aligns us with the annexation of Puerto Rico.
Yeah, we really need, we got to know about the history of Dobbs Ferry.
The main thing, with the risk that I'm going to undo what was just said, one of the comments I got from Anthony was absolutely correct, which was that I represented we didn't need a storm management plan in the sense that we didn't have to do the kind of thing with detention and all that. We absolutely need a storm detention system, which already exists on the property. We're going to tie in. We're going to do some really cool things with rain gardens. So if we can submit that where perhaps Suzanne Nolan would look at it and say, yeah, this looks good, and Anthony looks good, I think would be great.
So are we worried about that?
No, I mean, you really, well, just clarify a little bit. You need a stormwater management plan for everything that we do, that we disturb the ground. What you don't need is stormwater detention as part of your stormwater management plan. So the sediment and erosion control plan is fine. You mentioned rain gardens and so forth. That should be added to the site plan at some point, and we could look at that. But it's not required under the code to attenuate the stormwater.
Okay.
This is a public hearing, right?
Do we need to open it?
Yeah.
Open the public hearing?
Move, we open?
Second.
Third.
All in favor?
Aye. Anybody here want to speak to this? Close the public hearing.
Well,
I second.
count to 10.
I could show you lots of stuff.
Count it. All right. It's been moved and second that we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
It's closed.
So you can read the resolution.
That would be nice.
All right, so again, 2 resolutions. The first is the planning board resolution, whereas the applicant is seeking site plan approval to build additions to the existing house, including new front entry porch, a new family entry porch, 1-story library addition, 1-story family room with a finished lower level, and a first floor level deck and terrace, and a second floor roof deck and detached 2-car garage. Whereas the planning board conducted a duly noticed public hearing on February 2nd, it was concluded on February 2nd, during which all those wishing to be heard were given the opportunity to be heard and provide written comments. Now therefore be it resolved, the planning board of the village of Dobbs Ferry determines that based upon the findings and reasoning set forth below, the application for site plan approval is granted, subject to the following conditions. The approved plans, except otherwise as noted and provided herein, all work shall be performed in strict compliance with the plans submitted to the planning board, and they include site plans last revised January 19th, 2023. And the following conditions specific prior to the final site plan. One is specifically referring to that the applicant must address to the full satisfaction of village engineer all outstanding stormwater maintenance agreement, and engineering issues raised in the hearings and documents submitted to the board. And then the other item is the applicant must demonstrate that the proposed planting plan must meet the replacement of 50% of the total aggregate diameter of trees proposed for removal with new trees as per the code section 351I. And if the 50% replacement cannot be met, the applicant must pay the fee in lieu of for the balance of replanting replacement.
I move. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, and
You
then,
don't want me to show you any?
and then the second one is for the Architectural and Historic Review Board. And again, now for their be it resolved, the AHRB of the Village of Dobbs Ferry determines that based on the findings and reasons set forth below, the application for architectural and historic review approval is granted subject to the following, and it specifically refers to the site plan applications last revised January 19th, 2023.
I move approval. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Next item on our agenda. Where am I on our agenda? 60 Washington?
Yeah, 34 Clinton.
34 Clinton. 34 Clinton Avenue, continuation of pre-submission conference for proposed renovation in addition to existing building to create multifamily residential building. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you? I'm Christina Griffin, as you know. And just waiting to get the drawings up.
Yeah. Site visit for this.
Yeah, it would be useful, especially in the back. Yeah.
Good evening again. Christina Griffin. I'm principal CGA Studio Architects. I'm here with Karen Schubeck. She's a project architect, and Louis Fusco, the landscape architect, and the owner and the developer, John Sarave, is here. And we would like to show you the modifications we've made in response to your comments from the last meeting. I'd like to start with that first, even though we did receive the memo from the village planner, but I'm going to look at that after we present the drawings, because everything we've done so far has been in response to that last meeting. This is the image. This is just a summary taken from my cover letter to show that the changes that we have made. And I'm going to go through the drawings to show these to you. We've changed our site plan to break up the parking. We have a new layout to show you in response to having more varied areas, more planted areas for parking in the front yard. We've changed the permeable asphalt to permeable pavers because of the concern of maintenance. We're going to explain that to you later. And then the third item covers a lot of area related to the building, where we have made changes to look at the scale, massing, and the architectural features of the side and the back of the building to reduce mass and to make it more in keeping with the original Queen Anne building that's on the site. I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay. The plan on the left is the existing conditions of the site, and the plan on the right is our latest site plan. We are showing a central curb cut and 2 separate parking areas with a planted area in the middle so that you can have a view of greenery and the courtyard when you're looking from the sidewalk into the site. We have planted areas, breaking up these parking areas and a planting buffer. And I'm going to let the landscape architect explain that to you later in the presentation. The building on this level has not changed, except that we have pushed back the entry and the porch because we're trying to keep that link between the 2 main buildings. We're trying to diminish it so that it really feels like, generally you see 2 buildings, buildings that are similar in scale to a big house from the view of the front yard. This is a blow up of that lower level. We still have 7 spaces in a parking garage in the basement and 10 spaces out on the site. Next slide, please. Now, our floor plans have changed. We have given articulation to the building. As you can see on the right, we have lots of jogs. We've broken the wall on the right into 2 pieces with a recessed area. We've introduced rectangular bays, angular bays, and a tower feature. We've tucked the decks into recesses so they feel more like balconies, treating them like you would see on a Victorian house. And if you see the colors, each piece of the building is more in scale with the original house. This level, second level, is very similar to the first floor level. And then on our attic, 3rd floor, we have reduced the floor area and tucked as much as we can the floor area into the roof so that we have dormers and gables to provide windows into the space. And also we have a tower feature. And the next slide shows our new roof plan that is showing all these shapes that give the building more articulation. Very similar in treatment to a building from an older time. Now, our front elevation, which is our east elevation, has not changed that much, except for that link in the middle has changed. We have set it back towards the west about another 2.2 feet. We've made the 3rd floor entirely in the roof line, which is a small dormer at the top. The building to the right is the same. And then on the west, a north facade, as we turn the corner, this is the north facade. And we put the profile of the floor plan below the elevation, just so you can see how we have introduced a deep recess between 2 parts of the building. We're trying to give the sense of scale of like 2 large single-family homes. Introduced gables and a tower feature and tucked the railing into a recess for the deck. And this is the west elevation. Similar treatment where we have angular bays. We have recessed decks. We have a large gable, large gable over a bay window, and then small dormers up at the attic level.
So this, I'm sorry to interrupt, this elevation is actually different, right, a little bit than the one that is part of the submission? Better, I think, actually. because I was gonna
We
ask
added
about
more
the-
detail. I think we ran out of time.
Like the deck door.
It had to do with the deck. We felt the deck was monotonous, so we decided to angle it and have it actually come out. We had it straight across originally.
Right, and also the fenestration on the sliding, and whatever kind of, are those, what kind of doors, how do they operate? The doors out onto the balcony? Are they,
We haven't decided if they're French or sliding yet. We don't know. We'll get there, though. We also decided we'll have an interesting grill pattern for ventilation into the garage level rather than more, double hung windows. We also changed the next elevation as we turn around the building. Next slide. You see this south elevation of the building. We have, instead of a full height third floor, now it's entirely, now we just have a dormer, a large dormer in this case, with doors out to a smaller deck, just to reduce the scale of that part of the building. And then these elevations haven't really changed, except we have pushed back the link between the two, the old and the new. And that elevation is showing the old building and that beautiful gable feature that exists. And then on the right is our new facade, which is, I think, is pretty much the same it was before, except the link is now on the third floor. Everything is tucked in the roof line. Now, I'd like to have Louis Fusco, our landscape architect, take you through our revised site plan and also our 3D renderings.
Hi, I'm Louis Fusco, landscape architect with Louis Fusco Landscape Architects. And as Christine mentioned, we really took to heart your comments about the parking in the front and the neighbors. We actually were fortunate enough to have a group of the neighbors meet with the team to get their feedback on and their concerns. So we took care of that the past few weeks as well, and shown them this new site plan. Main changes that we made was we started to look at different options of entering and exiting. As you can remember in the previous rendition, we came in closer to the new section where the existing drive is and turned into a large court in the area, which we've now given over to a major green space. So as you're looking through the new opening from the street, you're looking through this new promenade to the entry area. The plan also shows, which I guess we can, Karen, you can continue it to the renderings. So this is a first rendering of that. This is a bird's eye view looking down in. You can see the coloration differences. To your left is the new permeable paver that will be used. We spoke with our client as well and discussed the differences between a porous asphalt and the possible additional maintenance as compared to the permeable paver. So the permeable paver that we're selecting is both permeable itself as well as a more open spacing in between. It'll have a capacity to handle 100% actually of the rainfall in that area will penetrate in there and actually then penetrates in based on how permeable the soil is. And based on the soil testing, the pavers and the compartment of gravel below is actually more porous than the actual soil below. However, in addition to that, our engineer has designed, though, the system, our Coltex system and drainage is in addition to that as well. So any additional runoff is running into the Coltex, as well as that soil, the 100-year flood for that area is taken into consideration. So all the rain is still going into that. On the darker gray that you're showing is traditional asphalt. On the right is another parking section. We've divided up the parking, planted it all up so that there's as much more of a residential feel to the whole set. Thank you, Karen. This is just a close-up. You can see the pathway where we'll have some benching to a plaza area between the two buildings, seating area. This is a view looking up down in, and just to show the existing 4-foot hedge that's there that will be maintained and added to. Plus, we have a second layer of plantings. There was particular concern for the neighbor on this side of not seeing any cars, and we've had between the new evergreen and deciduous plantings that we'll be adding. You can see from the street on this side, we've totally blocked anything of the house, which is more in keeping of what the existing landscape on that particular side is right now. Next. Again, a closer up of the plaza in between, the space, allowing us to see the comparison of the two sections of the building and how they're joining, and giving some open space for the tenants and residents of the building. Next. Here's a view of that lower area parking that's tucked off from the drive into the underground parking garage. So we've allotted, I believe we have 4 spaces on that side, and then 2 sets of 3 on the other side of the building with planting in between. Next. A view back out from that entry towards the street, where you can sort of see that the layering of plantings that we're proposing of, you know, on the inside, there'll be more ornamental. By the way, all the plantings that we're proposing are native planting. Our entire planting palette is natives. But we've got a variety, so it's not just, there's still going to be openness. That was a concern also, since it is a beautiful street and residence. We want to not, you know, block the entire house, but at least do a justice to blocking the parking and all. The one lower parking area to the one side, looking towards the neighbor. Next. Inner courtyard with some plantings and some privacy between the tenants and residents. Another view of the seating courtyard. A view from the street in the opposite direction, looking in. And we can see how the parking is fully blocked, you know, on one side over here, and, you know, essentially blocked also. Continue. Thanks. Viewing in from the street. The rear that Christine was starting to explain, the building, we've now planted out the walls and terrace to bring the scale of the building even closer to the landscape. Next. Direct view back. I know this was a big concern of the board last time, of the you know, the view of the house from the back, and we've planted out the planting of the different retaining walls and given it more of a in scale to the community there. Another angle, being able to show the different levels of landscaping there. And back around to the front of the house, and that's the garage entry to go in down below. And one last shot that shows the different elevations that Christine was explaining about the fenestration on this side of the building as well. Next. Here we've just indicate the different surfaces, both the asphalt, the permeable paver. We provided, I know that the board had asked for details on the paving as well, and that was also added into the packet in the last submission. Our full planting plan, trees, shrubs, and perennials, as I mentioned, are all native species that we're submitting, that we're proposing on the property. The stormwater has all been calculated. I don't know if there are any questions about the stormwater, we could answer them as well, but the full stormwater package has been completed as well.
I have a question. The rear of the property, you know, is fairly substantial. Is there any plans for access and recreation, patio? I mean, I know it's maybe early in the process, but it's kind of nice to waste.
We do have one patio space that is allocated to one of the units. It's accessible, the back property is accessible with the stairway going around. So Karen, could you just go back to the site plan for a quick second? Just wanna, around the side of the building here, there are stairs that bring you down to the lower area, so the back lawn area can be accessible. Unfortunately, with lot coverage, I would have loved to have maybe had another communal patio space, but we're right at the limit of it.
So little kids running around is about as far as you can go.
Yeah, I mean, but it'll be nice to have some green play space in an area like this, definitely.
is the extent of our presentation showing our changes from the last time. We did receive the memo from the village planner, and I guess I'd like to say that we did our coverage calculations based on the gross lot area, and I done about 8 projects that way. So we were kind of surprised to get that memo. Spence, we got one a month ago that said that we're fully compliant with the bulk restrictions for the MDRH zone. But I think we'd like to resolve this offline. You know, it is our intention to do an as-of-right plan, and whatever the interpretation is, we'd like to comply. So even if we have to cut back on the building, we would. But we were just kind of surprised because we were not looking at the code that way. And we met the building inspector 4 months ago, and we had a different understanding. So I'd just like to resolve that at some point, maybe with a meeting. To,
Just curious, is there going to be a big difference, you think?
No.
between gross
It's-
and net?
Very minor.
Okay.
it's minor, actually.
Very small.
2.8,
Yeah.
in fact, I was going to say,
I mean, the board can even
We-
issue a waiver, I mean, technically issue a waiver that, but.
yeah.
I'd like to show you an interesting diagram. Karen, can you bring up that diagram of all the places of the building that overhang the footprint? Okay. Yeah, this one. Yeah, we started taking a look at what brings the building over that calculation, even though still we just didn't really see it spelled out in the code. But nevertheless, I wanted to point out these areas that are in red, they add up about 300 and something square feet. And they overhang the footprint. I know previously we haven't even counted anything that overhangs because it doesn't touch the ground, but we did include this in our coverage calculations. But all of these items, even though they actually add to that, to the character of the building because they're those angular pieces and the porch. But we have other ideas if we really find that that is the way the code is interpreted. I actually have even 2 new houses I did in the last few years on Clinton that was done with the building coverage being the area of the footprint divided by the gross lot area. So we weren't really prepared for that. So I think it was a surprise. I'd like to see if we can figure out if that, is it changed the way the code is somehow written? It wasn't, I don't think it's clear. So whatever it is, it's minor, and we will figure out how we're going to get this building to meet the zoning regulations.
Just please clarify that for next month.
Say it again.
Please clarify that for next month, if you would.
Yeah. I think we did this morning. Spoke with Karen this morning from your office.
Yeah, I was on the phone, but
And you, right?
it's the same chart we've been looking at for years, so it says, it just doesn't spell out net lot area is used for doing building coverage. It just,
It does on our
not clear.
appendix pretty good, I think. Says it on every one, net lot area.
Okay. I'd just like to go over it again with you.
We can
because,
discuss.
We just finished another project done the same way, and I know you weren't the building inspector probably, on Judson Avenue. So I think, I'd just like to understand that.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I mean, to your point that the board could possibly waive that based on the concept that Karen and Christine are mentioning, that the sections that bring us over the 1-point-something% don't reach the ground. Is that something that, at a point like this, that you could overlook it? With regard to the lot coverage issue, we took a a very modest 45% of the permeable paving. If we took 50%, we'd be meeting that new number. So I'm just saying, is there a possibility, considering this element as well as ours, and that you could maybe make a special condition because the numbers are such a small percentage?
Also, we just did a lot of work on the project since the last meeting, and we even had a memo to say we meet the bulk restrictions, so we're surprised. I mean, we have to really take a hard look and see how we're going to.
It was a pre-submission conference. We're going to dive in a little bit more detail, and that's what we discovered.
Okay.
I'd like to comment that it's much improved, especially the facade, the parking areas. Just reducing the connecting building enough so that it seems to be not so prominent is much improved in my book.
Yeah, I think the subjective massing is much better. Thank you.
And the Queen Anne details, the tower structures.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Those are super cool.
Yeah. I think most of us, or probably all of us, are familiar with this building as we go up and down the street, but I'm not familiar with the property. I think it would be helpful for me, and hopefully for the rest of the board, to do a site visit before our next meeting.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
I'm on board.
Okay. Anybody got a date that doesn't work? I mean, we usually do a Sunday morning or Saturday morning or sometime.
Well, it has to be noticed, right?
Yeah, it has to be noticed.
So what's the earliest?
Together, it has to be noticed. If you go individually, it doesn't have to be.
No, I think we should go together if we can.
Then we can notice.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what we usually do with site visits, yeah.
And what does it take, 2 weeks?
So the 18th or the 20, sorry, the
How far do we have to
19th
notice
or
it?
the 26th,
I've got a commitment on the 26th.
12th or the 19th?
19th is good.
Can we notice by the 12th?
I can do any of them, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
12th?
I can do the
10 o'clock?
12th.
I'm sorry, 12th?
12th at 10 o'clock?
12th at 10 o'clock.
Okay, well, I think we can get the meeting in.
Yeah.
All right, the
12th?
down the line, did you hear that? The 12th
12th at 10 o'clock a.m.
at 10 a.m.
February 12th,
Yep.
10 a.m.
Would you like us to attend?
February 12th at 10 a.m. Is that possible?
I just wanted to be clear. Yes, we will. We'll be there.
Is-
You said the meeting with the building department, because there's a couple other comments too, dealing with emergency access and stuff like that that we should relate.
We'll do that.
In the previous applications in this area, people talk about water running down behind the building there in that gully. Does that actually happen? Like, runoff?
Clinton River?
The Clinton River.
The same bag.
Yeah.
Well, it shouldn't be a problem for you guys,
No.
right? It's just you don't want to add to the problem,
Yeah.
the flow to the Clinton River.
It starts at this guy's house and starts going down towards Broadway.
My house flows down into their house, it'll be interesting. Putting in Victorian me.
12 family. 12 family. You owe us another recreation fee.
So our next step is to meet on site.
What's next?
Okay.
Just, okay.
I'm just curious, have you, on the S3B, the drawing where you have the aerials of the neighborhood and you have the site, the property line, it's all the aerial photos. Have you done, right there, have you superimposed the new building into this? I'm just curious what it would look like with the other.
We have. But it's it was with the previous scheme, and we were but we have one with, this is existing and this is proposed with the previous
see, right.
roof beam.
Right, this is the old massing.
Because that looks really big compared to, right.
And we do this also, make sure we included a lot of around.
Right.
I would,
So would
I
you
would,
please update that with the new?
I'm just curious because this appears to be a lot smaller by the way that you manipulated the facade going in and out. So I'm just curious what it would look like in.
We'll show that to you next time. I think you're going to see it. It looks very similar.
Yeah.
to a lot of
I would
the other houses with all the dormers and gables and,
I think so. I would just suggest, I would render the roof the same way the roofs appear in this aerial.
Sure.
So that it'll help you. Because even if you were to show all the breaks in the roof form here, if it's still presented in this kind of monocolor thing, it's gonna look bigger than it will if you show the shade and shadow that's on all of the different pitches.
and maybe get a better feeling for how it
I would,
ties in
yeah.
with what's in the neighborhood.
And in the renderings, the shadowing is east-west. Is that pretty accurate?
Well,
The sun shadowing? I'm just curious, because, you know. Okay, good. Yeah, no, because it's, you
it's
know.
always a blue sky, come on.
No, I mean, in
No,
terms
the
of.
direction of the sun.
Yeah, direction of the sun and the shadowing. Does that make
Our
sense?
elevations are more detailed
Uh-huh.
than these, but good idea.
Thank you. It's a great presentation.
Thank you. Looks really pretty.
Okay, well, so February 12th at 10 a.m., we will, some of us, all of us will appear.
And then,
Later.
Do you want the addition staked out for your walkthrough?
What do you think?
The
We
foundation,
want it staked out.
the size.
The footprint.
See where the addition.
It would be helpful. It would be helpful. Just 4 stakes would be fine.
Done? We can do that?
Oh, all right.
oh,
Okay. Thanks.
okay.
I mean, just a couple of orange flags
Just
would be,
two corners, just so they could see the,
Yeah, we could do that, maybe just a couple of flags.
that's it, just a.
Yeah, the mass.
yeah, you don't have to put strings all over the
Yeah,
place.
I'll show you.
And the color and of the addition in the rendering is just a placeholder, I imagine.
We're working on it.
Yeah, okay.
We have different schemes. That's
Yeah.
one of them.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. Well,
Thank
Thank
you.
you. We'll-
Have a good night.
Very
Good progress.
Good presentation.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
What time is it?
Big building.
We got 7 a.m. in Brooklyn.
I think so. I think it.
Be in bed.
Broken.
Okay.
This,
So Whitney's on 14th now, right? On West, it's at the end of, yeah, there's parking around there.
Yeah.
kind of disturbing.
Further down.
No, it's
especially since they're a project.
It's right below 14th, maybe, you know, Gansevoort, right, whatever. Yeah, it's at the end of the, High Lodge, right?
Well, no, they got more. Hopefully next meeting, they got the big.
And plus, it's right on the west side. It's so easy. Yeah, you'll be there.